Hello and welcome to the channel. As always, like the video, and if you enjoyed the story, leave a comment on if you would want more. This fan fiction was not created by me, but in the description there is a link to the fanfic so you can show your support to the creator and read along. Without any more delay, let's dive into the story.
At Kumo's army, the Raikage was issuing orders to the troops and instructing the censors to keep a lookout for any traps or enemies hiding in the trees, and beside him stood his brother Killer Bee, the Eight-Tails Jinchuriki. Killer Bee didn't agree with this war, and even tried to not join it, saying that he wanted to stay back at Kumo to protect it. However, his big brother denied his request and said that Ujido will be taking care of Kumo in their absence, and his presence in the war is necessary to minimize their casualties. He closed his eyes and appeared inside a dark space where he saw a huge octopus-like creature. This was Gyuki, or better known as the Eight-Tails. Gyuki is a Ushioni, a yokai from Japanese folklore, with 4 long horns on its head, similar to that of a Jacob sheep. As a tailed beast, it is extremely massive in size to the point that it dwarfs entire forests. The lower left part of its horns was sliced off in a battle with A. This battle was caused by Orochimaru, who orchestrated the events that led to Blue Bee's death, Gyuki's previous Jinchuriki. By posing as his doctor and giving him Genjutsu-inducing pills to paralyze him, and proceeded to use the 5 elements unsealing jutsu to draw out the tailed beast. This resulted in Gyuki going berserk, killing 8 Kumo ninjas in the process and forcing the current Raikage to stop it on his own and then seal it in the Kahaku no Johei, amber purifying pot. The Kahaku no Johei is revered as one of the treasured tools of the Sage of Six Paths. It's a large orange pot with a stylized kanji for lightning that has the ability to seal anyone within it if the target responds when called by the wielder of the pot. If the person responds, the pot records their voice and then seals them. Even Kurama described it as a powerful tool that whatever is sealed into it cannot escape. However, it's very demanding to use and consumes an enormous amount of chakra, resulting most of the time in its wielder's death. Gyuki also has a muscular upper body structure, with a hunchback similar to an American bison, arms with spiked protrusions on the elbows, and hands with opposable thumbs like that of a human. Instead of hind legs, its lower half consists of its 8 tails, which resemble the cephalopod arms of an octopus. These tails will grow back in the event they are sliced off without taking a long time, unlike its horns. Killer Bee entered his mind space to rant on his frustrations to Gyuki, so he said while rapping, "Yo Gyuki, I want to ask a question. Do you have any objection?" "What's wrong, B? Are you still worried about the war?" asked Gyuki with a deep voice. Killer Bee responded again while rapping, "Yes. Indeed, you're absolutely right. So I will be upfront with you and ask it outright. I am troubled by this war. It's ripping my heart ajar. My heart isn't made of ice. That's why the pain I feel is twice. More than any could feel. I wish this situation was not real." "I can understand how you feel," Gyuki sighed before he continued. "Let's just hope there will be fewer wars in the future." Killer Bee lowered his head and was contemplating his brother's choice in joining this war and to strike while the iron is still hot, as he put it. But soon something broke his concentration, and both he and Gyuki raised their heads and looked in a direction some slight distance away from Konoha's camp. This chakra. They looked at each other worriedly, and they had the same ominous feeling that something bad was going to happen, and they were right, because out of nowhere they felt a huge amount of chakra rushing towards the direction of their army. Bee quickly intercepted its 8-tailed beast bomb. Gyuki yelled inside of Bee's mind and didn't hesitate as he transformed into his massive 8 tails form, then quickly planted his muscular hands on the ground and swung all of his 8 tentacles at the huge bomb to try to redirect its flying path. Meanwhile, the rest of Kumo's ninja were looking at this attack in despair, as it didn't leave them any time to respond, arriving in front of them in the blink of an eye. Only the strongest jonin and censors were capable of detecting it beforehand, and now they were witnessing their Jinchuriki struggling to redirect it away. After some struggle, Bee roared and used all of his physical strength along with the support of Gyuki before he was capable of redirecting this massive attack, leaving him slightly panting while the bomb continued its flight, now in a different direction, heading towards a mountain. As for the result? Boom. The sound of a huge explosion echoed as a spherical blue explosion emanated from the mountain that was hit, erasing it in the process and creating huge winds affecting everyone in the vicinity. The sight of a mountain getting erased made everyone stop for a second, and they soon saw the cause of this incident. A 100 meters tall fox appeared in the distance and was eyeing their army with its crimson eyes and 9 tails swirling behind its back, with a not-so-noticeable kid was standing on top of its right shoulder. "Was that all you've got, Kurama?" I said in a voice that only Kurama could hear, wanting to confirm something. However, his response was heard by everyone as he laughed in a loud voice. "Ha ha ha ha. Kid, I am barely warming up." I could guess so much. I thought before I looked at the enemy army and yelled in a loud voice, "Raikage and Killer Bee, come over here if you don't want your army slaughtered." I looked at me and veins started popping on his head as he thought while gnashing his teeth, "A kid actually dares to provoke me." But he knew that the 9 tails must be dealt with as soon as possible. Just when did Konoha gain control of this monster? He thought in anger at this fatal lack of information that even those creepy Akatsuki members didn't know, but he quickly calmed down and activated his ruthless fight mode. His body started getting enveloped in lightning nature chakra, increasing his physical attributes, strength, agility, as well as stimulating his nervous system, enhancing its speed and its reaction time, and also works as a very strong armor to defend against attack. This was A's famous ninjutsu, lightning release chakra mode, which, thanks to his huge amount of chakra that equaled to that of a tailed beast, allowed him to perform nin taijutsu and made him arguably the strongest living ninja currently. Seeing his big brother like this, Killer Bee knew he was getting serious, and he quickly got his confirmation. "Let's go seal that big fox and see what makes that kid so arrogant to provoke us. And don't be reckless," said A as lightning crackled around him. However, he was the first to act recklessly, as before B could respond, he transformed into a bolt of lightning, instantly appearing in front of the kid. "Say that again, kid," said a while, sending a terrifying punch at the kid's face, showing no mercy. For an instant, the crimson glow from the kid's eyes clashed with the lightning from the Raikage's eyes. I was shocked at the terrifying speed the Raikage could reach, as he took no time to appear in front of me, truly like a bolt of lightning. Even Kurama couldn't react in time, not to mention me, as I could simply look at his lightning-encased punch approaching my face slowly, and it hit him right on the nose, breaking it and causing blood to splatter everywhere from my face and sending me flying off of Kurama's shoulder. Falling from something that's 100 meters tall is no joke, especially when you are punched by someone like the Raikage, so the kid ended up going through many trees before he finally smashed into the ground, caving it in and raising a huge cloud of dust in the process. Seeing me getting damaged, the slit in Kurama's pupils contracted and a vicious aura started radiating from him as he tried to use his left claw to tear A into pieces. However, A saw his attack coming from a mile away and stepped on Kurama's shoulder, using it to jump back to the ground, dodging his attack in the process while thinking, "One down, one more to go." This is war, and A wasn't going to let any unknown variable get in his way, especially in the presence of such a dangerous opponent like the 9 tails. Unfortunately for him, as much caution as he wants to take, the kid he attacked wasn't that easy to deal with either, and unknown to A, who was now preoccupied with fighting the 9 tails, that same kid appeared in front of his brother's way. "Yo, kiddo, scram to the side before I kill you," said B, who was still in his 8 tails form and was trying to rush to help his brother fight against the 9 tails. "I'm not going anywhere, Killer B," I said as my eyes turned into my Mangekyo Sharingan, making Gyuki quickly warn B. Be careful, this kid is not normal. He actually used a shadow clone to draw your brother to fight Kurama, meaning he's probably confident to fight us and is very good at scheming. But more importantly, be careful of his eyes." "His eyes, you say? What worry is there for me, hey?" replied Killer B, who also wasn't going to underestimate this kid that was capable of tricking his brother. "These eyes are the Mangekyo Sharingan of the Uchiha clan, and they gain them when they suffer very strong emotional trauma, granting them different abilities from one member to another. I can also feel a strong unnatural aura of death emanating from this kid, so be extra careful," said Gyuki, who was ready to help B at any moment. "Gotcha," said B before he left his mind space and observed the kid and the weird atmosphere around him with a frown, especially when he heard that he must have gone through a terrible life, resulting in the awakening of his Mangekyo Sharingan. However, He can't show sympathy, especially with his brother fighting the strongest tailed beast on his own, so he reverted back from his full-tailed beast transformation to not exhaust his chakra back to a simple tailed beast mode covered with a red bubbling chakra and 8 tails, stretching behind him. This should be enough to deal with this kid and check out his powers, thought B, and during all this, the kid didn't move at all only and waited for B to finish his preparations. That's when he said, "Killer B, have a taste of death. Yomi no Kuni." Blood started dripping from my left eye, and suddenly 4 black chains covered in a heavy aura of death appeared out of thin air. These chains didn't reflect light, or maybe they simply brought it to a different realm, a realm of death. B dodged those chains at any cost, yelled Gyuki at the top of his voice when he saw how creepy those chains were, and they quickly attacked B at a terrifying speed. B could barely hear his friend's voice because he was overwhelmed with a feeling of fear, a feeling that surprisingly started at the same time the kid's other eye started bleeding, so he used his great speed and agility to barely dodge the 4 chains that were heading to his vital areas. The aura of death emanating from those chains was so powerful and ominous to the point that even A felt it while fighting Kurama, causing him to look at it. And this small distraction caused him to get smashed to the ground, but one of Kurama's attacks. My attacks were relentless as the chains of death kept following B wherever he went. But surprisingly, he was always able to dodge them, making me frown at how strong and fast this guy is, so I decided to add more pressure. I took out 3 lethal kunai and encased them in chakra before I threw them at Killer B. Even if the poison doesn't affect you, you will still be distracted enough for my chains to get you, I thought as I quickly did some hand signs, Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu. My 3 lethal kunai started multiplying in the air from 3 to 6, and then they became 12, which was my limit with this jutsu. Then I took a deep breath before I exhaled, casting the wind release. Great breakthrough jutsu, creating a very strong wind, which helped raise the speed of my kunais dramatically. Good enough, I thought, and I was prepared to manipulate them with my slithering throwing jutsu to take B by surprise. However, B wasn't phased at all and took out 7 short blades that have a red handle, and he held them in a very weird posture because, surprisingly, none of them was held directly in his hands. Instead, they were held in between the joints of his arms, under his armpits, bending his knees, and another one in his mouth. Then, he simply started spinning in a very calculated way, and no matter how I tried to change the direction of the kunais, his terrifying reaction, speed, and agility allowed him to deflect all of them while dodging my chains at the same time. I started feeling the stress from extensively using my chains of death, and I was annoyed even more because I can tell that he also noticed these changes and was waiting for the opportunity when I am too tired and end up messing up. Meanwhile, Killer B was looking at one of his short blades, which he allowed to make a very brief contact with one of the chains, and he noticed that part became so rusted it seemed that it might disintegrate at any moment. "Yo, Gyuki, you're right, I better be careful. If those chains touch me, the outcome would be dreadful." Killer B rapped while feeling some fear and thanking his luck that he reverted back to this form, which makes it easier for him to dodge such attacks, unlike his full transformation. "Yes, B, and I can see that this kid's body is simply too weak, and it's taking a huge toll on him to manipulate those chains. Otherwise, they might have been much stronger," Gyuki replied seriously but more relaxed as he now saw that B can deal with this danger. "You are right, I dash." Before B could reply, he noticed the kid clutching his left eye, and he seemed to lose control of the chains and was about to fall down. Good chance, thought B. Suddenly, he used the lightning release. Chakra mode jutsu similar to the Reikage, raising his speed to terrifying levels, and in the blink of an eye, he appeared behind Bakorio and used a chopping hand motion to the back of his neck. "Sorry, kid. That's the best I can do," thought B. However, what B couldn't see is that there was no fear in the kid's eye, only more blood dripping from them. Killer B was very confident in taking out the kid with this attack. However, when his hand connected, it didn't feel like he hit a person. Instead, he felt like his hand hit a very hard material. "Yo, what's this?" thought B, and before he could even react, he found that the chains that previously lost control were now trying to surround him like vicious snakes. They did so with a speed they never reached before, so it left him no time to understand what's happening as he felt death was closer to him than ever before, and it literally is the case. Not good was the only thought in Killer Bee's mind, and he couldn't even hear Gyuki yelling in his head as his body instinctively used its fastest speed to rush to a small opening that wasn't closed yet by the chains. Killer Bee barely escaped. However, it wasn't without a sacrifice as a small part of his right calf came in contact with the chains, and now he felt a terrible pain from it. Ugggh, groaned B, and when he looked at his calf, he saw a huge patch of rotten flesh that was trying to expand, and he finally heard Gyuki yelling, "B, cut it off quickly," and he did so without hesitation. When he was done, and while holding his bleeding calf, B finally looked at the kid kneeling in front of him, and he noticed that his eyes were bleeding to a scary degree and his body was shaking, barely holding itself together when a red chakra started enveloping it. Meanwhile, as Killer Bee was tending to his wounds, the black Susanoo rib cage that I barely summoned disappeared back into thin air, and I felt a terrible pain swarming every cell of my body, and my strong vitality and basic regeneration ability could barely keep me from losing consciousness, so I had to use some of Kurama's chakra to help the healing process. What happened just now wasn't a fluke, as B and Gyuki wouldn't have recklessly acted this way just because they got an opportunity. He could attack in many ways without getting close to Bakorio, so why did he choose to act this way? The reason for this is simple. The ability of Bakorio's right eye Jikininki, which allows him to feel and influence a person's emotions by either amplifying them or diminishing them. But what's more terrifying is the ability to create emotions. However, what Bakorio used here is the amplification and diminishing ability. At the start of the fight, he amplified the fear they felt from chains of death to make them paranoid and more inclined to take the first opportunity they find, and when that feeling reached its peak, that's when he pretended to be weak and lowered his head to show Killer Bee the back of his neck. Understanding that Bee wasn't into killing kids, Bakorio created an opportunity for him to take him out without killing him, and the moment Bee had this desire, Bakorio amplified it as much as possible while also diminishing his caution to make him less careful and lose that precious instant to react, which changed the whole game for him. As for his attack, it was simply blocked by Susanoo, which is the ultimate defense even at its most basic form. Next came the chains of death, which work in a way that the more stress you are willing to endure on your body, the faster they can become. That's why Bakorio almost directly collapsed. It was not only from the stress of using Susanoo, but also because of overexerting himself to increase the speed of the chains of death. I was panting, dealing with the terrible pain all over my body while looking at B, who was still clutching on his bleeding calf while standing on one leg, and he said with a weak voice, "Yo kid, why you fight so nasty? Maybe my mistake for acting so hasty. Killer B, do you know how an Uchiha awakened his Mangekyo Sharingan, and how it's related to the ability they awaken?" I said while hearing explosion sounds everywhere in the background from the battle between Kurama and the Raikage, and also Konoha's ninja led by Hayashi and Kumo's led by Darui. "I do know how you awaken your eye, but what ability you get, who knows why," said B while rapping like always. This idiot still acts like this even during a war. He must really be confident in his brother and village forces. Well, it's good as long as I can buy some time until Kurama beat that annoying Raikage and I can't use my Mangekyo powers anymore anyways, or I will probably die from overexhaustion, I thought in an instant before I said. Killer Bee also was of a similar mind and was simply waiting for his calf to heal so that he can recover his speed. Well, I have a theory. I am sure you heard of Fugaku, the current Hokage of Konoha, and his ability to shrink space through your spies, right? Killer Bee nodded at this and waited for me to continue, not denying that they have spies. That ability was born from his strong desire to close the distance between his Uchiha clan and Konoha, so when he awakened his Mangekyo Sharingan, he gained the ability to truly shrink space. I said with my face twitching in pain from time to time, and still using Jikininki to keep me willing to listen. Hearing what I said, not to mention B, even Gyuki was surprised at how the ability an Uchiha gains is related to his emotions. "I see, I never expected this. It's a very weird hypothesis," said B in surprise. "Yes, it is. As for me, I lost my emotion of happiness and I couldn't get it back again no matter what, so I always desired for death, so guess what I go when I awaken my eyes," I said with an ironic look in my eyes. Killer Bee reflected on our fight before he responded with narrowed eyes. You got those 4 chains of death. That almost took my breath. And an ability to control desire. That's what made my situation dire. I admired how he can rap at anything he says before I calmly replied. That's right. The 4 chains of death are the ability of my left I named Yomi no Kuni. It allows me to summon chains from the realm of the dead that could corrode anything they touch, just like what happened to your blade and calf, and I could move them any way I want. It all depends on the strength of my body. Killer Bee frowned at this and really felt lucky that he reacted fast enough, as he would have instantly rotted away if he was trapped inside the chains. As for my right eye's ability, it's called Jikaninki, and it allows me to control both emotions and desires that my target is currently having. I didn't tell him I could also create emotion for obvious reason. This is also the most taxing ability for my right eye, so I won't use it lightly. Confirming his guess, Killer Bee really started to take this kid seriously, and he prepared to enter his second-tailed beast mode. The time for playing is over. This kid is dangerous. I can't keep acting virtuous, thought Killer Bee as he decided to show no more mercy and treat this kid as an enemy ninja, so he planned to enter his second-tailed beast mode. When a Jinchuriki gets used to controlling their tailed beast, they access their powers in different steps. First, there is the first-tailed beast mode, and it is a dense shroud of chakra that forms around the Jinchuriki, which they draw from their tailed beast. The shroud, a translucent red with bubbles of chakra reminiscent of boiling liquid, forming all over it, provides a degree of physical protection, but can also harm the user if used to a certain extent if they are not in complete control of their tailed beast. The shroud that encompasses the Jinchuriki vaguely resembles the corresponding tailed beast. In the case of Killer Bee, chakra horns form on his head. Because chakra is malleable, the shroud can extend beyond the reach of the Jinchuriki, often used to create chakra arms that allow them to interact with their environment. However, the most significant manifestation is the tails that sprout from the Jinchuriki's body, up to the maximum number of tails that the corresponding beast possesses. Like in Killer Bee's case, in the previous fight he manifested 8 tails behind him. For each tail produced, the Jinchuriki gains an incrementally greater boost to speed, strength, and chakra. These are merely the benefits of the fist transformation provided by a tailed beast chakra. The second mode is way more powerful. This mode works in a similar way to the first one, as the chakra of the tailed beast is going to envelop the Jinchuriki. However, this time this chakra will be converted into a humanoid shape, granting the Jinchuriki an edge in battle without completely releasing the beast itself. Using the Jinchuriki's body as a sort of endoskeleton, a dark red, nearly black layer of chakra envelopes them. The physical manifestations of the corresponding beast that are vaguely present in the first mode become far clearer in the second mode, reproducing a humanoid miniature version of the beast. Muscle mass increases and beast-specific attributes such as shells and ears become clearly defined. This form grants so much power, durability, and speed to the user to the point that a Sage Mode Naruto that was played around with pain became capable of demolishing that same pain, leaving him helpless without having any way to deal with him. And now Killer Bee was planning to enter this form, as he said. Kid, this fight is over, and you are going to be the loser. I noticed how dark red chakra started enveloping him and his skin seemed to be disintegrating as I thought. It seems I am left with no choice. Then I said in my mind. Status. Name, Bakorio Uchiha. Uchiha. Health, 5,000/9,000, plus 104 per minute. Chakra, 10,000/15600, plus 212 per minute. Stamina, 2,000/4,200, plus 56 per minute. Attributes, STR 180/AGI 170/PHY 220/VIT 260/STA 420/Spirit 530. Skills, Throwing Art level 48, Slithering Throwing Art level 31, Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu level 22, Close Combat Fighting level 71, Swordsmanship level 42, Body Flicker Jutsu level 53, Substitution Jutsu level 22, Water Bullet Jutsu level 26, Clone Jutsu level 6, Transformation Jutsu level 22, Shadow Clone Jutsu level 34. Fireball Jutsu level 25. Great Fireball Jutsu level 52. Great Fire Annihilation level 30. Great Breakthrough level 15. Quintuple Rashomon level 9. Cooking level 27. Chakra. Control level 41. Meditation level 42. I have Insight level 31. I have Hypnotism level 27. Jikaninki level 4. Yomi no Kuni level 3. Susanoo level 2. Chakra. Fire Transformation level 32. Chakra. Water Transformation level 11. Chakra. Physical Energy. Yang. Transformation level 23. Chakra. Spiritual Energy. Yin. Transformation level 23. Chakra. Wind Transformation level 4. Abilities: Save and Load, Map, Appraisal, Basic Regeneration. Bloodline: Uchiha 50%. Talents: Chakra Master, Body Great Master, Cooking Advanced, Sealing Advanced, Hunter Medium. Without hesitation, I used all of my 155 free attribute points, putting 20 on Strength and 30 on Agility, raising them both to 200. Then I poured the rest 105 on my physique, raising it all the way to 335, causing all the stress and pain I was feeling from overusing my Mangekyo Sharingan to disappear, and even my chakra volume increased. Killer B2 noticed how my muscles were becoming more defined, and he started having a bad feeling, but my transformation wasn't over as I used something that I was leaving for urgent situations like this. It was the attributes multiplier. All of a sudden, all my attributes soared to an unbelievable degree, and my body started visibly changing and growing taller, reaching almost 150 centimeters, and I felt an unimaginable level of strength, as if I could beat anyone with my fists alone, and my chakra started creating waves around me from its sheer volume. Next, I used the medium agility potion that increased the agility by 50% for 10 minutes. I honestly felt unbeatable at the moment, but I knew that even with all of this, I am probably only as strong as Killer B in his first mode, so I can't be reckless. I checked my attributes again. Health: 21,533, 208 per minute. Chakra: 33,320, 424 per minute. Stamina: 8,400, 112 per minute. Attributes: STR 400/Agi 600/PHY 670/Vit 520/STA 840/Spirit 1060. Both my transformation and B's transformation happened in less than a few seconds, and now reactivating my Mangekyo Sharingan. We gave one last look at each other. Of course, B won't look directly at my eyes before we made our move. B directly stomped on the ground and rushed at me with such a speed that I believed was at least 50% faster than my current max speed. Bear in my mind that my current speed was already almost 2 times the speed of sound. However, even though he has the advantage over me, I can still easily react thanks to my superior reaction speed and Mangekyo Sharingan. So I summoned my 4 death chains and kept them circulating around me, bringing B, who was about to punch me, to a halt before he stabbed his hands on the ground, unrooting a huge patch of land the size of a small hill, and he threw it at me with such power that it created a sonic boom. Not good, I thought as I looked at this attack that could cause an enormous amount of destruction if it was used inside a hidden village. Looking at this small hill, I thought he quickly deduced that I couldn't use the chains to completely cover my body, so he used such a sneaky attack, which even if I intercept with my chains, the debris would still be fatal even to my strong body. No, not only that, but he also wants to check the defense of my Susanoo, huh? Well, let me show how useful these chains are. I stopped using one of my chains for protection, and I used it with a very fast speed like a whip to cut the huge patch of land in 2 pieces, each of them continuing their travel in a different direction. However, that's when something shocking happened. Through my Mangekyo Sharingan, I saw an unbelievable scene. B, who was behind the land, suddenly vanished completely, and I felt my heart constrict in fear. He tricked my eyes. However, before I could think anymore, I felt an overwhelming pressure and danger above me. The human senses have their own limits. For example, eyesight is only useful for things that are in your range of vision. Smelling is only useful when your target is emitting a smell. And let's not talk about taste and touch because they require contact. As for hearing, It's only reliable when your target isn't moving faster than the speed of the sound. In this instant, Killer Bee used some kind of clone jutsu to hide his real presence, and he did it perfectly. I didn't know when he did this, maybe when I was distracted during my power-up. However it may be, he did it perfectly. And now, using his very high experience, he was capable of completely hiding his presence and shifting my attention to that small hill while tricking my eye, which I started to heavily rely on, into believing that he was still behind his attack. But when that clone disappeared, I understood. I get up. Finding my strong senses useless, I had no time to react. I only had one thing left to rely on. My instincts. Instincts that were recently strengthened by my hunter talent and previously by Kurama's inheritance. So the moment I felt danger coming from above me, I did the only thing I could in this situation, and that is to summon my Susanoo. Different from the previous time, however, where I could barely summon its rib cage. This time, both the rib cage and the hand appeared guarding directly above me, and Killer Bee was finally capable of taking a good look at this weird ability. TCH, this kid is really fast at reacting, and what's this dark structure? Thought Bee in his mind. Killer Bee was using his lightning release chakra mode to its full power, appearing like a lightning bolt in the air above me, and when he was near my head, his hand transformed into one of Gyuki's huge hands, and he smashed his fist right on top of my Susanoo's hand. Boom. This was an attack that had speed, power, and weight, all pushed to the extreme and combined in one, and to my surprise, the result was the hand of my Susanoo breaking into pieces, followed by the rib cage, and finally my crossed arms, which I barely had the time to cross in front of my chest thanks to the few moments bought by the Susanoo. CREACCK. I was smashed into the ground, creating a huge crater in it, and both my hands kept creating some weird sounds, but in the end, they didn't crack thanks to my huge physique attribute, which was no joke, and I quickly jumped away from Killer Bee and looked at this dangerous man in wariness who was looking at me in absolute shock in his face. Why you actually survived this? Finally, the shock caused Killer Bee to forget to rap as he exclaimed, TCH, this hurts a lot, but I believe my hands will recover in no time. I thought while looking at my slightly bruised hands that didn't break from such a terrifying attack that could put a hole in a mountain. However, I couldn't feel proud of my achievement because the reality is that I was tricked and I almost paid for by my life. Kid, you really surprised me. But I will beat you, this I guarantee, said B back to his rapping. Meanwhile, he was talking inside with Gyuki with a frown on his face. Why, oh comrade, what was that? I am getting tired of the abilities of this brat. Gyuki seriously said, that is Susanoo. It's an ability of the Mangekyo Sharingan that puts a huge burden on the body and the eyes. This kid doesn't seem to be so proficient in using it, that's why he could barely summon a hand, which we are lucky for. This ability is famously called the ultimate offense and defense, so be careful. Yes, this I know. Did you see how tough that kid though, replied B again. Yes, his body is abnormally tough. Even with how weakened your attack got, it should have still been enough to destroy any person hit with it without any protection. Yet that kid took it on with his bare body and only got some bruises. You should be really careful. Killer Bee nodded before he exited his mind space and saw the kid getting enveloped in the first tailed beast transformation with 4 tails behind him. He's really using Kurama's chakra. How did he convince him? Thought Gyuki in wonder at the event unfolding in front of his eyes. And then the terrible fight between these two continued. Meanwhile, on the rest of this battlefield, Konoha's forces were barely holding back Kumo's forces using Shikaka's tactics and taking advantage of the terrain. However, they were slowly getting pushed back because of the sheer difference in numbers, and many casualties started appearing on the ranks of both sides. Meanwhile, the ongoing fight between Kurama and the Raikage was getting more and more intense, with A inflicting some cuts on Kurama's sturdy body, and some bruises started appearing on the body of the now angry Raikage from getting smashed many times, and he noticed his brother getting injured during his fight, but the Nine Tails never gave him the chance to go help him, so their stalemate continued. On the other fronts, each of Konoha's forces were following their assigned plans. Against Suna, Shursui issued a final command to the controlled Hamura to bring some chaos on the forces of the deserters, making it easier for Konoha's forces to deal with them. Then he released his control over him to focus on trying to take control of the one tail who he found was sealed inside the sun of the current Kazekage. But they had to first force them to use it on this battlefield, and it wasn't easy as they also had to deal with all of their 6,000 strong forces along with the Kazekage. Against IWA, Kushina and Tsunade were working together to repel Inoki and try to unseal or seal their Jinchuriki, which they weren't successful in doing yet, and Konoha's forces were barely able to handle the pressure from Iwa's huge number of forces, which reached 9,000, the biggest number so far, and even with the help of Tsunade's Summonkatsu, the number of casualties was getting higher and higher. Against Kiri, Jiraiya was using his incomplete Sage mode and fighting against the manipulated Mizukage Yagura Karatachi, who already transformed into his second-tailed beast mode and was trying to find an opportunity to release him from the control of Obito's Jinjutsu. Meanwhile, his Toad Summon Gamabunta was helping Konoha's forces to deal with Kiri's forces to make up for the difference in numbers. And finally, Hiruzen, Minato, Mukai, Kakashi, and Fugaku were confronting the Akatsuki trio of Tobi, Kaku, and Kisame along with Orochimaru and Danzo. Orochimaru summoned his snake Manda while Danzo summoned Baku, and they were currently in a very heated fight against Hiruzen and his summon Enma in a 4 vs 2 fight, but Hiruzen was handling it very well. Minato, on the other hand, didn't engage Tobi right away, and they were talking about past events. Kisame laughed when he saw Kakashi and Mukai were his opponents. They were surprisingly similar, with both of them having a dojutsu in their left eyes, one with a Sharingan and the other a Byakugan. And this fight started right away with Mukai taking the lead, while Kakashi assisting him in many ways and quickly pressuring Kisame and putting him on a tough spot, as he found Samahata was hard to use against the skilled Mukai. As for Fugaku and Kakuzu, while Kakuzu was already missing 2 hearts as blood dripped from Fugaku's eyes, reminding everyone of his nickname, Wicked Eye. All in all, the situation on each battlefield was going as planned, but it didn't take long for it to change with the involvement of a dangerous group of people. The first change in the war happened in the front with Kiri. Currently, Jiraiya was fighting Yagura in a very heated battle with 2 old male and female frogs standing on each of his shoulders and red marking covering his face. The 2 small frogs were Jiraiya's master Fukasaku and his wife Shima. These more than 800 years old frogs were offering their assistance to Jiraiya to allow him to enter Sage mode because he couldn't maintain it on his own otherwise, and to help him recover his natural energy. Normally, a ninja's chakra is made when a balance is reached between spiritual and physical energies. However, Sage mode is different. It's a specialized field of jutsu that involves the use of natural energy. Senjutsu practitioners, known as sages, learn to draw natural energy inside their bodies, blending it with their own chakra to create Senjutsu chakra. This chakra adds a new dimension of power to the user's techniques, while also allowing for the use of techniques that would not otherwise be possible. It also allows the user to enter Sage mode, in which their physical parameters and sensing capabilities are dramatically enhanced for as long as the mode is active. However, drawing nature's energy and reaching a balance between it and physical and spiritual energies is not easy, and this is just the case when out of combat. When in a fight, it is much harder because drawing natural energy requires for both the body and the mind to be still. To learn Senjutsu, first, the practitioner is required to learn how to sense nature energy, and this is easier to do in places filled with it like Mount Mayaboku under the teaching of toads or Ryuchi Cave under the teaching of snakes. Second, the learners must have a very strong chakra to begin with. Otherwise, the moment they try to draw in nature energy, it might overwhelm them, and the result? In the best case scenario, turns into the shape of the animal you are learning it from, and in a bad case, you will directly turn into stone. A talented person like Jiraiya was barely capable of reaching that balance and entering Sage mode on his own, but he couldn't keep it up in a fight because he can't draw natural energy without being in a meditative state. That's why he needs the assistance of his master and his wife. Back to the fight. Yagura rushed at Jiraiya with incredible speed, trying to use his coral palm jutsu on him. This jutsu causes corals to grow on any surface he touches. When used on opponents, it restricts their movement and eventually immobilizes them, making it a very deadly jutsu. Jiraiya, however, wasn't nice enough to allow himself to get caught in such a thing, so the moment Yagura came close to him, his long spiky white hair became even bigger and sharp like spears, and he attacked Yagura directly with it, forcing him to retreat. Yagura already experienced how dangerous Jiraiya's hair is, as it can even penetrate and injure his currently strong form, so he wasn't going to let it happen again, and after he stabilized himself, he started charging a tailed beast mode. Jiraiya, noticing this, quickly used a swamp jutsu that could cover a huge surface, trying to disrupt Yagura's tailed beast bomb, and it worked because he was forced to stop what he was doing and felt like it was time to get serious, and started transforming into his full-tailed beast form. Finally, he transformed, thought Jiraiya as he gave a quick look to both Fukasaku and Shima, and they understood what to do right away. Sage Art, Gomen. In an instant, Jiraiya started spewing a huge amount of oil from his mouth, followed by Fukasaku performing a large wind release jutsu to propel the oil, and Shima performing a large fire release jutsu to ignite it. In an instant, Yagura, who transformed into the Three Tails Isabu's huge form and was still stuck in the swamp, suddenly found himself covered in oil, and before he could understand what was happening, he saw a wind and fire jutsu coming his way, causing him to widen his eyes in surprise, as he knew that he will end up heavily injured if such a combination attack hit him. His instincts screamed at him and told him that within an instant, the area will be filled with oil burning at temperatures of thousands of degrees, creating an inferno of such magnitude that, within an instant, the target and the surrounding area will be reduced to cinders. Not good. He was waiting for me to transform from the start, Tisich, thought Yagura in worry, but just when Jiraiya was starting to get smug with the success of his plan and felt like his mission was soon to be over, a huge patch of sand and earth started raising from the ground and intercepted his attack, just in time, protecting Yagura behind it. Yagura, without hesitating, used both wind and water release on himself to remove all the oil from his body before he stopped and looked at the man that saved him, or thing. It was a hunched person that resembled a scorpion, wearing a black robe with red cloud markings on it, with a long metallic tail that ended with a very sharp tip extending from under his robe. It was Sasori from the Akatsuki and the missing Nin from Suna. Jiraiya instantly understood he was in trouble because the person in front of him was a member of the Akatsuki, and at that moment he hoped that at least only his battlefield was interfered with. However, his hopes were in vain because all the other fronts had similar situations. In Suna, Juzo appeared, intercepting Itachi and Shursui, who were already struggling to fight the Kazekage, to the point that Shursui was forced to use his Susanoo, and now they were going to get forced into a much worse situation. In the IWA front, Tsunade was having an intense fight with the Tsuchikage Inoki, already activating her strongest jutsu ninja art creation rebirth, strength of 100 technique, which made markings appear not only on her face, but all over her body. She was having a very bloody fight with Inoki and some of the ninjas helping him, and had no regard for her injuries, which kept healing constantly, and only dodged attacks like Inoki's dust release, which she can't regenerate from the damage it could cause, as it literally disintegrates anything into particles. Meanwhile, Kushina was using her Uzumaki clan's adamantine sealing chains and was trapping Han, the Jinchuriki of the Five Tails, with them, and using the support of Konoha's forces and Tsunade, trying to buy her time to unseal the Five Tails. She was about to succeed in freeing the Five Tails and make him go berserk inside the battlefield, but just as she was about to succeed, the sun suddenly was hidden behind something, and when everyone raised their heads, they saw a blue-haired woman in black robes and white wings like that of an angel hovering in the sky above the battlefield, and behind her was a sea of small pieces of paper which covered the sun. And quickly, those pieces of paper started descending and either exploding among the ranks of Konoha's forces or penetrating them like sharp knives, causing that image of an angel to turn into a bloody devil. This was Conan. And finally, there was the Kumo battlefield. Not just one person appeared. Instead, 6 orange-haired people wearing Akatsuki robes with weird eyes appeared at the same time. They were the 6 Paths of Pain. And now, their leader Pain was hovering above the battlefield, looking at the fight between Kurama and A, as well as me and Killer B before he turned his attention to Konoha's struggling forces and said without emotions in his voice, "Feel the pain." A boy and a humanoid beast were facing each other in a very intense battle. The boy had 4 black chains revolving around him with a very ominous aura, which he continuously attacked the beast with. He also carried 2 short swords in his hands, and the manifestation of a black skeletal ribcage with a skeletal hand surrounding him defended his body. Meanwhile, the beast tried all kinds of ways to injure the kid or trick him like he previously did, but nothing worked again, making them reach a stalemate. "B, stop holding back," said Gyuki to the frustrated Killer B. "TCH, okay," replied B before he hastily retreated to make some distance between himself and the kid's chains, which he already understood how long their range is. "What's he doing?" I thought as I had a bad feeling of what Killer B was going to do, and my worries soon came true as he opened his mouth and started drawing positive and negative energies, creating a tailed beast bomb as tall as me. Killer B is the most perfect living Jinchuriki currently in the world, and his cooperation with his tailed beast is almost seamless, allowing him to create this tailed beast bomb in a very short time. Of course, before this, he calculated the distance to retreat properly so that even if I try to rush at him, I won't reach him in time with my speed and range. But what's more disturbing is he also calculated the direction and positioned himself to face Konoha's camp. TCH, this is really troublesome. Now I can't dodge, or they are going to be doomed, I thought as I quickly bit off the thumbs of both of my right and left hands and put them on the ground, summoning Jutsu, Quintuple Rashomon. I don't like using this jutsu because it uses so much chakra, as much as 4,000 for each gate, and even though currently this jutsu reached level 9, its chakra consumption only lowered by 160. I remembered from the anime that Orochimaru only needed 3 gates to block Naruto's tailed beast bomb. However, Naruto at that time only had 4 tails in his second tailed beast mode, so he can't be compared to the current Killer Bee with 8 tails, so I plan to use 4 gates. As my hands touched the ground, Killer Bee already started compressing the huge bomb to a smaller, but even more dangerous bomb as huge gates started emerging from the ground in front of me. 4 huge Rashomon gates that had demon-like faces appeared with different colors similar to those of the different elements. The color of the first gate was red, the second gate was green, the third was blue, and the fourth was yellow. And with them appearing, I lost a massive 15,000 chakra, which is almost half of my current chakra reserves. TCH, I can't let him use this again, or I will simply die of exhaustion, I thought, and just as I ended this thought, Killer Bee sent the ball in my direction. People fighting all around us already noticed the emergence of the huge gates, and when they saw the reason for them, everyone standing behind me quickly retreated from their location, while Kurama looked at me worriedly and even started preparing a bomb of his own to attack Killer Bee with, but he was interrupted by A. The bomb arrived in no time and made contact with the first gate, which it destroyed before it reached the second gate, and when it hit it, a huge explosion was created that was weakened by the third and fourth gates before it reached my location in the shape of strong wind that did me no damage. TCH, he blocked even this attack, but I can tell that he exhausted a huge amount of chakra doing it, so if we hit him again he's going to be completely drained, said Gyuki to B. You don't worry. We're gonna make him sorry, replied B, but just as he was about to attack again, he heard Gyuki yell in his head, B. A very dangerous group is approaching this battlefield from the sky. Gyuki wasn't the only one who noticed them. Me, Kurama, Killer Bee, and the Raikage and many sensors from both hidden villages like the members of the Hyuga clan using their Byakugan also noticed the same huge chakra coming our way. It was as if we had a mutual agreement, and we stopped our fights as we looked at what appeared in the air a few seconds later. It was an unusual green bird. Not only does it demonstrate a prominent and jagged yellow-colored beak, but it also features 3 distinct legs and light purple eyes with circles inside of them. They were the Rinnegan, indicating Nagato was controlling it. It also has 1 giant chakra receiver sticking through the right side of its back and another one sticking through the left side of its neck. I instantly recognized this bird as Nagato's animal path summon, and I had a terrible feeling when I saw the 6 people standing on top of it. They were the 6 paths of pain. They consisted of the Deva path, which is Nagato's favorite, and used the body of his friend Yahiko, and it has the power to manipulate attractive and repulsive forces, but it cannot be performed in rapid succession and requires some time to recharge. Minimum 5 seconds. It also grants the use of the Jutsu Chibaku Tensei, which allows the user to create a huge makeshift terrestrial body from all the surrounding matter that is attracted to a black sphere released by this jutsu. This is how the moon of the current Naruto world was created and how Kagaya was sealed. The Azura Path is a bold man with an unusual body shape which used to be a wandering puppeteer before he was captured by Nagato. He had a distinctively wide neck and no ears. It grants the user the ability to augment their own body to summon mechanized armor and various ballistic and mechanical weaponry. The Human Path is a man with long orange hair that used to be a ninja from the village hidden in the waterfalls. It grants a Rinnegan user the ability to read the mind of any target by placing his hand on the target's head or chest and yanking the soul out of the body, resulting in the inevitable death of the target afterward. The Naraka Path is a short-haired man who used to be a priest before he was killed by Nagato and made into one of his paths, the most important one, as it grants the user 2 main abilities: interrogation and restoration by summoning the King of Hell. The Animal Path is a man with long hair tied into a ponytail with a fringe hanging down from the right side of his head who used to be a ninja from the Fuma clan that resided in the Land of Sound. It grants the user the ability to summon various animals and creatures to aid in battle, which appears to be immortal, as even if they die they can be summoned again, and it can even summon humans. The Preta Path is a stocky man with beady brown eyes with his hair tied in a short ponytail. It grants the user the ability to absorb chakra in any shape or form, making any ninjutsu ineffective against it. My heart sank when I saw them, and then the feeling increased, even more when I saw Pain glance at us before he said, "Feel the pain." And the green bird they were riding on top of started diving directly towards the center of Konoha's ninjas, with the Preta Path absorbing any attacks heading towards it. What followed when they landed is simply a huge massacre. My expression kept changing when I saw the massacre happening to Konoha's forces at the hands of the 6 paths of pain. Fear, hopelessness, despair, and anger. That's all I felt. Terrible anger at what's happening, a wave of hopelessness at my own weakness, and a suffocating feeling of despair at the thought of facing such a monster. But this one, my insanity kicking in once more. An ominous but still aura started revolving around the body of the young boy, which Killer Bee, who was distracted by the ensuing massacre and trying to see if the newcomers were friends or foes, also noticed, and he started having a bad feeling. I pushed my body to its absolute limits and rushed in the direction of Konoha's army. Killer Bee didn't try to stop me, as my target was clearly the new enemy and not Kumo's forces, so he turned around and decided to help his brother seal the 9 tails once and for all, so he quickly rushed in that direction, arriving in an instant and transformed into the full massive 8 tails form while giving the boy he was fighting one last glance as he thought, "Rest in peace." "Yo, brother. Let's deal with this together," said Killer Bee as he started wrestling with Kurama in his full Gyuki form. I simply nodded at him and took out a huge pot that has the kanji of lightning written on it, and it caused Kurama to growl in annoyance. Meanwhile, back at the battlefield, Pain was killing people left and right, and with Konoha's forces already occupied by Kumo's. No one could spare the time to deal with him, nor was there someone who could face him, so Hayashi ordered a retreat. However, it won't be easy to retreat, and possibly only the lucky ones will be able to escape under such intense attacks, especially against Kumo's ninjas, who are known for their lightning release and speed. Devapath Pain was strangling a Hyuga by the neck while retrieving a black rod out of the sleeve of his robe, and was planning to stab him in the heart with it. That Hyuga member was only a chunin, so there was no chance for him to free himself no matter how much he struggled, punched, or kicked at Pain. So, he was going to accept his dark fate of certain death, but that's when a kid that was enveloped in red chakra and a very ominous aura while holding 2 short swords in his hands appeared at a terrifying speed, breaking the sound barrier as he slashed at Pain's extended hand. Pain looked at the sharpness of the short swords heading his way, as well as the red bubbling-tailed beast chakra strengthening the boy, and knew his hand would be gone if he allowed him to connect, so he simply raised his free hands at the first person he deemed worthy in this battlefield. A very strong repulsive force came out of Pain's extended hand, threatening to send me so far away in the distance. However, I already anticipated this. The moment the repulsive force hit, My shadow clone was pushed away before he disintegrated into a puff of smoke, causing Pain to widen his eyes a little in surprise as I appeared out of the shadows of one of the trees and attacked him again before his cooldown was over. What I used is another use of my Yomi no Kuni that allows me to mimic a dead person, effectively hiding all my presence from getting detected by simple chakra sensing, and with this being a battlefield, it was even more effective. However, I can't move during this state, so it needs to be used carefully. Pain quickly regained his calm and retrieved a rod from his sleeve to block my swords while still suspicious how someone could avoid his detection. At the same time, his other paths were already converging in this direction, lessening the pressure on Konoha's army that was dealing with many of Pain's summoned animals like a rhino with very strong defense, a multi-headed dog that keeps on multiplying into smaller versions of itself when attacked, etc. The clash of our attacks created a huge shockwave, and to Pain's surprise that rod was cracked, and he was pushed back, making him realize that I surpassed him in terms of strength, which caused him to involuntarily let go of the Hyuga he was holding. I also noticed that my short sword got slightly chipped, making me frown, and I decided to avoid direct confrontations like this in the future. Cough cough tea. Thank cough you. The Hyuga Chunin kept coughing and gasping for air, and I simply nodded at him and said, "Run." He looked at my Mangekyo Sharingan in admiration before he nodded and quickly left while I looked at the 6 paths of pain that started approaching me and said, "Why did you decide to join the battlefield all of a sudden?" This question really perplexed me, and I had a feeling that they didn't simply interfere in only this battlefield, seeing that Nagato's here alone. "Change in plans," replied Pain emotionlessly as he looked briefly in Kurama's direction and said, "Kid, join my organization." It seems Nagato saw a lot of potential in me, and is even tempted to get me to join him, huh? And I was wondering why would he answer my question, I thought, as a smile formed on my face. A terrifying smile as 4 block chains suddenly came out of my body and attacked the 6 paths of pain along with the rest of the ninja from Kumo. Most of them dodged in time, and the Naraka path simply hid behind the Preta path, which blocked one of my chains and absorbed some of its chakra, causing me to hastily retrieve it, but the animal and human paths couldn't dodge in time and were both stabbed by my chains. Deva Path Pain didn't seem too distressed by this, as he believed he could just restore them using the King of Hell, but unfortunately for him, death is absolute. As I retrieved my chains with some Kumo ninja still attached to them along with the animal and human paths, I smirked devilishly at Deva Pain, and Nagato for some reason felt like I was looking directly at him. Nagato's eyes widened as he watched what happened next. All the corpses started rotting before they disintegrated into nothingness, and he felt his connection with them disappear completely. "Impossible," yelled Nagato in his hiding place, but no one heard him. The moment this happened, the animals rampaging through Konoha's forces disappeared into puffs of smoke as their summoner was no more. I should avoid the ability of that Preta path. He absorbed a lot of my chakra, I thought as I looked at my chakra reserves that were already at dangerous levels, having only around 20% left, so I took a chakra regenerating pill, allowing me to quickly restore it back to 100%, making Nagato surprised again. Meanwhile, Darui, who was Kumo's commander in the absence of the wreckage, saw what my chains did to some of Kumo's ninja and understood their danger, so he decided to not keep waiting for my fight with Pain to be over and started ordering some of Kumo's jonin to attack me, using all kinds of attacks with him at the lead using his storm release. Hayashi's eyes shone with determination when he saw the huge beasts that were wrecking Konoha's formation disappear, as well as my fight with Pain, and now Kumo's forces attacking me, so he decided to stop the retreat and ordered, "Attack! Don't let our comrades die alone." And this was the beginning of the end. Ha ha ha. A boy panted for breath as an ocean of corpses laid splattered on the ground around him, belonging to both allies and enemies. His body was littered with injuries, and he was barely conscious while silently standing in front of 3 people looking at him in anger. They were Pain, the Raikage A, and Killer B. As for the boy, he was the heavily injured Bakorio who used all his chakra and regenerating pills as well as every ability he could muster in the previous fight. "Kid, I have to commend you. To cause this many casualties on your own and in our presence, you should be proud of your achievement. However, unfortunately for you, it all ends here," said it with a melancholic look while looking at the blind boy standing in front of him. Indeed, Bakorio used his Mangekyo Sharingan to its absolute possible limits, and the result was both his usually black eyes were now gray, and only darkness filled his vision, and he could barely hear the Rakich's words. Just how many people have I killed? I thought in guilt, which quickly washed away, however. I couldn't have asked for a better form of training. I quickly ended my thoughts and raised my head in the direction of each of these three insurmountable mountains that I couldn't cross, especially when the effect of my agility potion wore off. You three are strong, cough, cough. I said as I coughed some blood in the process before I smiled, but my system is stronger. My last sentence made the Rakage have a bad feeling, and he sent a terrifying punch directly to my throat to kill me. However, I simply said in my mind, load. Darkness more potent than the one I experienced from being blind overwhelmed my vision before it quickly vanished, and I found a familiar scenery in front of my eyes. It was Konoha's huge gate. I quickly checked my body and felt that everything was okay, but then the mental fatigue kicked in and I remembered what I just experienced. All the people I killed, all the people that were killed around me, the mutilated bodies, the smell of blood, the war cries. Everything flashed in front of my eyes, causing me to puke, and a concerned Hayashi quickly rushed to my side and asked, Bakorio, what's wrong? He used his Byakugan and checked my body for any injuries, and when he found nothing, he heaved a sigh of relief and waited for my response. I am fine, don't worry. I barely said this with my eyes closed through my gritted teeth and with my whole body shaking continuously. You are a very important part of the plan. I am sorry, but I need to make sure you are all right, otherwise we might need to change it. So, if anything is bothering you, please tell me, and I will try to help you, said Hayashi with a serious face. Inside, however, Hayashi was sighing at the decision of giving a kid so much responsibility and thought he's probably very nervous about going to war. Still, he was fine during all the preparation period until just now. Did something happen when I wasn't paying attention? I slowly calmed down and an ominous stillness emitted from my body. I'm fine now, don't worry. Let's go. Hayashi looked at my back and gave one last look while thinking, I hope you are really fine, before he followed me. This was a save point I made one day before the start of the war, just so I can experience it as much as I need to and make it my training ground. I quickly made some recollections of what happened as I started my trip with Hayashi to set up our camp in the land of hot waters. Someone probably informed Pain about the release of the Nine Tails, so he probably was scared that Kyumo would be able to seal Kurama with the artifact of the Sage of the Six Paths, the Kahaku no Johei. Then with their advanced Jinchuriki training methods, they might acquire a new terrifying Jinchuriki, making them too strong to handle even for the Akatsuki. This would make the mission to retrieve the tailed beasts very hard, and they might not even be able to accomplish it. Not to mention that thanks to the teamwork of A and Killer B, they were indeed able to seal Kurama in that pod, and then join the fight against me. TCH, how troublesome. I thought an annoyance before I looked at the system and noticed that most of my skills rose greatly in level, and I even unlocked some new quests. Quest Throwing Art 3. Reach level 50 in your throwing art. Reward: 500 points, plus 20 free attribute points. Quest Swordsmanship 3. Reach level 50 in your swordsmanship. Reward: 500 points, swift sword style. Quest Ninja Killer. Elite Jonin, kill one Elite Jonin level ninja. Reward: 1,000 points, 30% Akimichi bloodline. I directly accepted all the rewards, not worried that they will disappear if I go back in time, as the quests can be reopened if that happens. I checked the description of this sword style, and I was pleasantly surprised. Swift sword style, strike like the wind, sharp and fast. For each level, the user's attack speed with a sword is increased by 5%. I was pleasantly surprised and learned it without hesitation, which caused a huge influx of information to appear on my head. As for the free attributes points, I will use them with the rest of my 155 free points when the time comes. As for the bloodline, it mentioned that it would make it easier for me to learn Yang release-related jutsu, as well as increase my defense depending on the percentage of the bloodline. So with 30% bloodline, my defense became 15% stronger, and I even completed a bloodline-related quest, but its reward can wait for later. Satisfied with my gains, I marched to war with more confidence than before and a heart that was growing heavier. One day later, we arrived at the camp again, and I didn't bother to tell Hayashi to change the plans about announcing Kurama publicly because he's going to join the war either way, and at most, it would buy us a few minutes, so it wasn't worth it. Instead, I kept adjusting my state of mind, and I used up all my attribute points before the start of the war, and I went to Kurama to ask him for more chakra, as now my strengthened body can store more of it. Kurama almost didn't recognize me as my body grew up a lot from those attributes, but my chakra signature can't be faked, so he confirmed my identity right away and didn't mind transferring some more of his chakra to me, and it was enough to allow me to use the first-tailed beast form to its full power with 9 tails extending from me. "Thanks, Kurama," I said, but noticing the heartless look in my eyes, Kurama felt something was wrong, so he said, "Are you okay?" "Yes, this is necessary," I replied. Kurama opened his eyes in confusion about what I meant before he said, "What do you mean?" I simply turned around and said, "Let's go, show them your might." Kurama hid his thoughts well and excitedly stood up, towering above everything even in his small state, and said, growling, "Don't worry, consider this battlefield already won." I didn't reply to him, although inside I said to myself, "I wish what you said was true. All of this wouldn't be necessary." But then I quickly hardened my resolve again and marched to the battlefield, my ultimate training ground. It wasn't long before the war started again, and while on top of Kurama's shoulder, we used the same tactic to draw Killer Bee and the Raikage away. However, this time I didn't hesitate to go all out from the start, and the moment he attacked me, I used my Mangekyo Sharingan's ability. "Yomi no Kuni," I muttered, and just when he was in front of me, 4 dark and ominous chains appeared out of nowhere and attacked the Raikage, who was stuck in midair with incredible speed. The situation won't be the same, I thought as I looked coldly at the Raikage enveloped in his lightning chakra mode. Not good, thought A as he tried to change the position of his body midair, but it was to no avail as the chains also adjusted their attack direction instantly, so left with no choice and against his screaming instincts. I used his left leg and stepped on one of the chains and jumped away with such a force that he created a crater on the ground when he landed. His fall created a huge cloud of dust and dirt, and when it settled, everyone on the battlefield was shocked at what they saw. A, standing there with a serious face looking at the boy on top of the 9 tails, the lower portion of his left leg gone. Killer Bee was the first to notice the Raikage's injured leg, causing him to scream in worry and rush toward him. "Brother." Seeing Killer Bee rushing here, I jumped from Kurama's shoulder with a terrifying speed as I already took the agility potion and slashed him with my new swift sword style, forcing him to draw out one of his short blades to block it. Clang. A loud sound echoed from the clash of blades. TCH, this guy is really strong. I thought, as unlike what happened with Pain, this guy didn't budge at all, even though the power of my attack was greatly enhanced by the jump. Strong was the only thought in Killer Bee's mind that was filled with rage, so he decided to enter his second-tailed beast mode directly to get rid of this dangerous kid that could injure his brother as soon as possible. Seeing him starting to transform, I also started using Kurama's chakra. "Bring it on," I said as I rushed at him, signifying the true beginning of our second fight. Sometime later. Ha ha ha. Again, a heavily injured boy could be seen panting while surrounded by a sea of corpses, as well as 3 people standing in front of him. A very familiar scene for the currently blind boy. However, what was different is that his enemies also had various injuries on their bodies and weren't unscathed like the first time. "Kid, I have to commend you. To cause us these many casualties on your own in our presence, you should be proud of your achievement. However, unfortunately for you, it all ends here." It repeated the same thing he said before. However, this time he said it with both a melancholic look as well as admiration while looking at the blind boy standing in front of him that dealt him such terrifying injuries. I didn't respond to what he said and simply said in my mind, "Load," waiting for the usual blindness to come. However, it never did. Instead, to the horror of the boy who almost felt like time was stopped thanks to his senses being pushed to their absolute limits. He saw a notification appear in his head, lighting the darkness he fell into when he became blind. Error host. Insufficient energy for this specific function. What do you mean insufficient energy? I yelled inside my head at the system as I felt my instincts screaming, feeling a terrible level of danger from the action that Rakeage was about to make. The Rakeage's hand slowly started being pulled back, clearly planning to hit me with the finishing blow. That's when I heard the answer from the system. Initial energy left in the system after host's reincarnation is almost depleted and can't support a function like loading. I didn't have any time to waste in this situation, so I could only think, how can I recharge you? I asked hurriedly. Host requires energy that is connected and compatible with the system. Host can use the system's energy protocol to search for compatible energy sources nearby. Do it, I said as I felt the Rakeage's hand already moving in my direction and the wind from it already started pushing against my face. Initializing the system energy protocol 5%, 10%, 100%. Search complete. 2 compatible energy sources found nearby, host chakra and host life energy. Would you like to use them? Yes/no. Yes. Host chakra and life energy are the new energy sources for the system. Calculating. Host chakra too low, insufficient. My heart sank when I read this, but I already guessed it with all my chakra exhausted in the fight, so I was only left with my life energy, and the next notification that appeared confirmed this. Calculating. Host life energy sufficient. Calculating consumption to return 1 day in time. At this moment, the Rakeage's hand was already millimeters from my face, and the lightning covering his body already started making contact with my face. Calculations complete. "30 days of the host's life required yes/no. Yes, I yelled without hesitating, and it was the same moment a punch connected with my head. Thankfully, however, the darkness that comes before going back in time finally enveloped my vision again, and I found myself in front of Konoha's huge gate. When I opened my eyes, I felt like a drowned man as I kept gasping for air with sweat covering all of my body, resulting in another familiar scene of Hayashi rushing to my side and asking with a concerned look on his face, "Bakorio, what's wrong?" I looked at Hayashi while having a feeling in my heart that I lost something precious, so I dismissed him because I wanted to think about what happened. "I am fine, Hayashi. Don't worry, and please leave me alone for a while." Hayashi looked at the sweat still dripping from my face suspiciously before he sighed and said, "Okay, but please remember that you are a very important part of the plan. I am sorry, but I need to make sure you are all right. Otherwise, we might need to change it, so if anything is bothering you, please tell me, and I will try to help you." I nodded at him. "Yes, I will," before he finally sighed and left much more concerned than when he came. Meanwhile, finding myself finally alone, I said in my head, "System, how come you required energy all of a sudden?" Host, no game can be played without energy. Fair. King enough. I thought in anger before I said, "Why didn't you tell me before it was over?" Host, the system only sends notifications about things when needed or discovered, like when the host discovered the map function, there's an added energy function. Indeed, I could see in these notifications, and when I opened the system, a new small battery sign with a percentage beside it, and it was almost empty at 3%. System, how much will it cost me to return if I had my chakra full? Host, every 10,000 points of chakra can reduce the time by 1 day. So, at most I can reduce it to 28 days, huh? This sucks, I thought in annoyance. I wish I got a bloodline that increases my chakra reserve, and not that Akimichi bloodline, even though it's also useful, I thought in regret. System, is there a way to recharge you without using my chakra or life? I asked, hoping to find a way to solve this mess. After all, returning to the time before Danzo will really cost me dearly now. Host, the system can recharge itself using nature energy. My eyes lit up when I read this, and I started having hope. Great. So how long will it take you to recharge yourself? Negative. host is required to be capable of absorbing nature energy first. Never mind. I thought as I felt my hopes getting crushed. Training nature energy is a very dangerous task, so it's better done with assistance from someone who mastered its use. That's why I've been postponing training it even though I got a Juris chakra that greatly raised my affinity towards nature's energy. Still, at least now I have a way to recharge the system in the future. I put training nature energy into my list of priorities for the future before I focused on the current situation. It has been almost 40 days since the incident with Danzo, meaning I might lose more than 3 years of my life if I return now. TCH, what a mess. This situation really came at an unexpected time and ruined some of the plans I had for this war. As initially, I wanted to keep experiencing the war to train and raise my skills, but now this came out of nowhere, which is really annoying. Let's follow with the original plan for now. I will at least try to experience what each of the different fronts has to offer 3 times before I go back in time. I thought in determination as I decided it was worth it to spend some of my lifespan for this opportunity. This was so I can hone my skills and raise my experience against the different ways of fighting each hidden village had to offer. In Kumo, they have their strong speed and lightning release, which I already saw plenty of, and I am planning to experience it again. In Suna, they have their puppeteering and wind release as well as different ways of using hidden weapons and poison. In IWA, they focus on physical strength and earth release as well as the masterful use of explosions. In Kiri, they have their assassination tactics as well as the 7 ninja swordsmen, minus the swords in the possession of Juzo and Kisame, in their mist and water release. I was planning to learn all I can from each of these forces before I go back in time, and I was going to do it no matter the price since I waited for so long for the situation to develop to this extent. So without hesitation, I visited Hayashi, who was organizing the forces before they set off towards Kumo's front. Hayashi looked at me in surprise since he didn't expect me to visit after he saw me in that weird state. Is he finally ready to talk about what was bothering him? Thought Hayashi as he said with a smile. What brought you here, Bakorio? I want to talk to you in private if possible, I replied with a serious face while looking at the people close by. Hayashi felt that something was wrong with my expression, so he nodded at me before he turned to his vice commander and said, "Continue the preparations as planned. I will be right back." The vice commander was a tall and strong man with brown hair and a determined look on his face that seemed to never change no matter what. I didn't see this guy before in the anime, but I knew from the information I gathered about the army that he was a jonin named Akira Jiriku. He used to be an orphan and was nurtured by Hiruzen since a young age. However, because his personality wasn't fit to become an umbu, he was raised to be a war commander. And he was doing great at this as he gained enough merits from the Third Ninja War to raise him to the rank of vice commander without the support of a clan, and no one complained about it as he was highly respected for his competence. Just how many people died in this world even in the absence of war? I thought as I looked at this man who I couldn't help but lament the unknown fate he's going to face that's going to bring him an early death. I noticed Akira too shot me a weird look before he nodded at Hayashi seriously and said, "Yes, Commander." I went some distance away from the people with Hayashi, and we both made sure that no one was near us before we stared at each other in silence. Noticing my hesitation about what I wanted to say, Hayashi decided to break the silence and said with a smile, "Akira's is pretty good, don't you think?" I felt my heart constrict when I heard what he said as I felt like this guy was looking right through my heart, but then I simply sighed and said, "Indeed, that vice commander of yours is pretty good. I can feel the aura of a leader as well as a very strong determination emanating from him." Hayashi nodded at my assessment and shot Akira, who was organizing the forces, a look filled with admiration and said, "Actually, if not for fear that he lacks in backing and some people wouldn't like to take orders from him like some of the arrogant Hyuga clan's member and those from other big clans, Akira would have been assigned the role of a commander instead of me." Indeed, there are always people with superiority complex anywhere you go, huh? I thought before I responded. I see. Hayashi, truthfully, I have something I want to ask from you. Hayashi looked at me with a smile and said, "You want me to take on the Jinchuriki of the 8 Tails in your place, don't you?" My face froze for an instant, and I didn't know what to say. I think my abilities are better suited against multiple people, and I can also ask Kurama to give you some dash. Ha 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 ha. Hayashi suddenly burst out laughing, cutting me off, and before he followed by punching me in the head. What the hell are yo dash? I tried to ask if this guy was going crazy or not, but he cut me off again and gave me another knock on the head as I stared at him dumbly. I decided to wait for him to explain himself, and when he stopped laughing, he looked at me with a serious face he never used before and said, "Why are you trying to explain yourself? Aren't we friends?" It was like a lightning bolt exploding in my ears, making a sound louder than a tailed beast bomb. Am I sending my friend to his death? This thought almost swallowed my mind before a knock got me out of it again. "Stop thinking stupid things," said Hayashi with a disappointed face. "I said nothing when the plan was for you to face this huge danger, so stop blaming yourself for me facing it. This is how it should have been in the first place, and most importantly." Once he paused here, a terrifying presence filled with a cold pride started emitting from Hayashi as he said coldly, "Have some trust in the leader of the Hyuga clan." I broke out of my daze and nodded at him before my face turned ice cold. "Okay, I want you to deal with the Jinchuriki and buy me as much time as possible. I will help you get some of Kurama's chakra." "Good, that will help a lot," said Hayashi back to his normal smile. However, I wasn't done, so I went to the main point. "Not only that, I will give you a clear description of the personality of A and Killer B as well as their attack patterns, jutsu, and overall strength. Follow me to meet Kurama." And so to the surprise of Hayashi, a huge amount of information about his enemy was fed to him, making the fear he was hiding in his heart slightly diminish. It might not be a hopeless fight, thought Hayashi as he looked at the huge nine-tailed fox in front of him. And, hi guys, I read the comments about why the sudden addition of the energy requirement for the system. Let's just say it's related to it being ownerless in the first place. I will post an additional chapter if anyone could guess the actual details, laughing face. As for how this works, there are many ways to solve it. Find a compatible energy source. After all, the system only scanned the nearby vicinity. Learn how to absorb nature energy without turning into a work of art. Or he might keep paying with his life like an idiot. Anyways, this energy affects all the functions of the system. Whether it is granting rewards from quests or turning what he kills into experience or granting proficiency when he repeats skills. One day later, while Hayashi was trying to pump up the morale of Konoha's ninjas by explaining to them the addition of Kurama to the war, I was remembering a scene that happened twice while I was fighting with Killer Bee and Kumo's army, and it worried me a lot. Whenever I actually start to push Killer Bee back and gain some edge in our battle as my mastery with my man Gekyo Sharingan increases, or I divert my attention to Kumo's forces or pain when he attacks, I always get interrupted by a sudden sneak attack from the Raikage, who surprisingly was able to seal Kurama even though he had the 7-star seal. As I looked at Kurama, who was being paraded in front of the scared ninjas like some kind of horror show, I couldn't help but think, those tools belonging to the Sage of the Sixth Paths are really too strong, and that Raikage really isn't to be messed with. His chakra reserves for sure match a tailed beast. I opened my status to check my progress from these two wars. Status. Stat value. Name Bakorio Uchiha. Level 31. Health 9000, plus 104 per minute. Chakra 15600, 212 per minute. Stamina 4200, 56 per minute. Attributes. STRAGIPHYVIT STASPI. 180,170,220,260,425,130. Free attribute points 175, 155 plus 20. Mastery. Close combat fighting level 74. Swordsmanship level 52. Throwing art level 51. Sealing art level 18. Chakra control level 46. Meditation level 42. Fire chakra transformation level 35. Wind chakra transformation level 11. Water chakra transformation level 12. Yin chakra transformation level 28. Yang chakra transformation level 28. Skills. General. Eye of Insight level 40. Eye of Hypnotism level 34. Yomi no Kuni level 15. Jikaninki level 12. Susanoo level 11. Summon. Quintuple Rashomon level 15. Shadow Clone Jutsu level 38. Substitution Jutsu level 28. Clone Jutsu level 7. Body Flicker Jutsu level 57. Transformation Jutsu level 28. Cooking level 27. Ninjutsu. Fire. Fireball level 30. Great Fireball level 59. Great Fire Annihilation level 35. Wind. Great Breakthrough level 22. Water. Water Bullet level 26. In // Taijutsu // Shuriken Jutsu. Slithering Throwing Art level 40. Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu level 31. Kenjutsu. Swift Sword Style level 5. Juinjutsu // Genjutsu // Fuinjutsu // Senjutsu // Abilities. Save and load. Appraisal. Map. Bloodlines. Uchiha 50%. Akimichi 30%. Talents. Chakra Master. Body Great Master. Cooking Advanced. Sealing Advanced. Hunter Medium. Not bad. Many of my skills rose in level and I can't wait for my close combat fighting skill to reach level 75. The reward for that must be great. I thought in delight because the improvements I experienced in this war were truly huge, and it made me feel like it was worth it. Especially in the abilities of my Mangekyo Sharingan. Now, with their level higher, they became stronger and would cause less stress on my body and eyes so I can use them even more. This is something no Uchiha could achieve other than the extremely talented Madara and Obito, who was injected with Hashirama's cells. So he was capable of recovering from the after effects of using his eyes, which is why he didn't go blind from overusing Kamui even though he didn't have an eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. After I finished checking my stats and skills, I noticed that Akira was about to finish his speech, so I quickly used all my free attributes points like I usually do, which caused my body to grow in size again before I flickered and arrived beside him. The vice commander. He was in charge of the army because Hayashi was focusing on controlling the huge amount of chakra he recently received from Kurama. Meanwhile, Akira, who was focusing on organizing the army into teams to take advantage of the terrain and traps planted all over the battlefield, was surprised when he felt someone appear beside him, so he turned and was about to reprimand this reckless person, but he stopped when he saw it was a boy he found familiar but didn't fully recognize. "Who's this?" thought Akira in bewilderment while looking at the boy who seemed familiar yet not at the same time. "Who are you?" Akira asked with a serious face while secretly putting his guard up. "It's me, Bakorio. I just came to say that once the distraction starts, I will set off on my own, so don't worry about my placement on the battlefield." A jonin beside us couldn't help but chuckle while looking at the boy who was thinking so highly of himself, but in his eyes, he was simply trying to throw his life away pointlessly, so he said, "Kid, what are you talking about? You think you're a hero or something? Everyone needs to go in teams." I ignored that jonin and simply looked at Akira waiting for his response. "This kid is serious," was all Akira could think as he looked at the absolute seriousness and confidence in the kid's eyes, and he knew he wasn't asking for his permission, he was simply telling him what he was going to do. He received some information about this kid from the higher-ups, as many people vouched for his strength, including the 4th and 5th Hokages, yet it couldn't change the fact in his eyes that he was still a kid even if he was from the strong Uchiha clan. "First of all, are you really Bakorio?" inquired Akira with a change of demeanor, as the difference in my body wasn't small, and if I turn out to be an imposter, he was ready to strike me down. "Vice Commander, do you really believe that he's that kid?" That jonin from earlier kept looking at me in annoyance and distrust, especially when I ignored him. Akira didn't respond and simply looked at me, waiting for me to do something that couldn't be faked. "Yes, it's me. I am using a secret jutsu to strengthen my body temporarily," I said as the pupils of both my eyes turned red like a blood moon with 3 tomo revolving inside of them. "It's really him. Just what kind of jutsu could change a kid so much?" thought Akira, but he relaxed soon after and said responsibly, "I can't let you go on the battlefield on your own. It's too dangerous and you are inexperienced, so you might cause your death at any moment and ruin our attack plans." I couldn't help but respect this man, standing with his back straight like a spear, clearly not the type to send his people to their deaths like a certain Orochimaru, R.I.P. Nawaki. However, I couldn't waste too much time here and keep arguing with him, so I used my trump card right away. You know what my mission was originally, right? Akira flinched at my question and hesitated to answer right away, so I continued by saying, stop wasting our time and just do your best leading our forces. I will be fine. I directly flickered away, leaving Akira and that Jonin behind. What's that kid talking about? Asked the Jonin, who knew that there were some changes to the plan since Hayashi wasn't going to lead the army anymore. Instead, this responsibility fell on the hands of Akira, who was now clenching his hands very tightly to the point that blood stopped flowing through them, and said, nothing. Complete the final preparations right away. While inside he was thinking, if you don't come back safe, I will make sure to beat you up in the afterlife, before he returned his attention to making the final preparations for Kumo's impending attack. Meanwhile, just outside the camp, Kurama was lying down with his eyes closed and Hayashi standing in front of him, trying to control the chakra he was just given. Sensing my presence, Kurama opened his eyes and was surprised at the huge change that occurred to my body after the enhancement, but he didn't say anything to not disturb Hayashi. I approached Kurama and to his surprise gently stroked his head before I whispered, we need to talk. With his eyes wide in surprise, Kurama nodded at me, and I did some silencing seals to stop any sound from leaving this area before my eyes turned into my Mangekyo Sharingan, and a heavy and dark aura of death radiated from me, further isolating the area surrounding us from praying eyes. Before I stopped and said, Kurama, how much do you know about the treasures of the Sage of the Six Paths? The slit in Kurama's eyes contracted a little as this question hit one of his sore spots, causing the atmosphere around him to change. Growling, why do you want to know about them? For the first time, I could feel some hostility towards me coming from Kurama, who was looking at me with a dangerous look in his eyes. This is thanks to my Mangekyo Sharingan ability, Jikaninki, which allows me to feel emotions. However, his hostility was visible even without using my ability, making me feel disappointed. Don't worry, I am not interested in possessing them. However, they are already in the possession of Kumo's forces, and I believe they will use them in the war. One item in particular, which I believe is the strongest among these 5 treasures, is the Kahaku no Johei, and I think they will use it to seal you. Kurama growled in discomfort and said, that damned pot still exists? Yes, so you should be careful and not get arrogant, and use the full power of the seal Minato and Kushina gave you, as well as anything in your power to interrupt the Reikage from using it. That's all. Once I finished what I said, I directly started leaving, and Kurama, who also could feel emotions, felt something very clearly emanating from me. It was disappointment. Knowing that he made a mistake, Kurama felt guilty at misunderstanding my intentions, so he quickly caught me with his huge hand and said, wait. I turned at this big fox with my eyes back to normal and saw him struggling to say something, causing it to come out like gibberish, IA_re. What? I asked coldly. Growling, I am sorry, kid, I misunderstood you, said Kurama with an angry tone to hide his embarrassment. Sensing the clear feeling of guilt inside Kurama, I ended up sighing and forgiving him. Don't worry about it. Anyways, do you have any idea how those items came to be in the possession of Kumo? This question really bothered me because logically, these items should have been in the possession of the descendants of Hagoromo, the Sage of the Six Paths. Yet his currently known descendants, which are the Uchiha, the Senju, and Uzumaki that happened to be in Konoha and the now destroyed Uzushiogakure, didn't have these items, leaving only one speculation. Perhaps the main family of Kumo is somehow related to the Sage of the Six Paths? Well, Ajura had more than one clan as his descendants, so it's not impossible for the same to be true for Indra. Maybe one clan inherited his eyes as for the other clan who didn't. They were granted the tools of his father instead, and that clan might possibly be the current leaders of Kumo for generations. A clan without a name in the original Naruto. The more I thought about it, the more it seemed believable to me, especially when I remembered that, like Sasuke, Indra also was very talented in lightning release as much as he was in fire release, so this theory might truly be possible. I heard Kurama's voice breaking me out of my thoughts, saying, I don't know. The Sage of the Six Paths sent me to the land of fire right before his death, and I didn't leave that territory until the time I was sealed. Grrrr. I could see pure rage hidden in Kurama's expression, like a savage animal with his fangs showing menacingly. Well, can't blame him. It's only logical to feel this way after what happened to him. I sighed, expecting his answer before I said, give me some more of your chakra. He snorted in displeasure but extended his hand anyways and put it on my shoulder before he started injecting me with more of his chakra enough for a full first-tailed beast transformation. And as I was adjusting to it, Hayashi, who was new to Kurama's chakra, finally gained control of it. He looked at me in surprise, clearly bewildered by the change my body experienced from the attributes enhancement like anyone who saw me before. However, he instantly knew that I wasn't a fake, and his face quickly turned to worry, which he tried to hide while thinking, just at what cost did you gain this kind of power? So he quickly asked me about, going straight to the point. What happened to you, Bakorio? I could see from his expression that he misunderstood my power-up for some forbidden jutsu, but explaining to him is impossible, so I simply decided to ignore his question and said, nothing, I'm fine. Try using Kurama's chakra to transform into the first-tailed beast mode. Hayashi wasn't pleased with my answer and yelled at me, what do you mean nothing? You clearly used some kind of forbidden jutsu, and God knows what you sacrificed for this power. Kurama looked at me silently, and I could tell he was having the same emotions as Hayashi currently, so I decided to lie. I used a secret jutsu, that's true. However, my life isn't in danger, so don't worry. Go ahead and use your Byakugan if you want, and you will easily confirm what I am saying. Hayashi quickly used his Byakugan, causing veins to appear around his eyes, and started checking my bones, muscles, and organs, but he couldn't find anything wrong with my body, and everything seemed to be working just fine. Instead, he was surprised, as it seemed to have reached this point thanks to pure training, so he gave me a deep look and reluctantly nodded his head before he said, I will believe you for now. However, inside he knew his Byakugan can't check a person's life energy or vitality. Then he started using Kurama's chakra, and he was quickly enveloped in a red bubbling chakra with 4 tails extending behind his back, which was the maximum he could control in this short amount of time. Amazing was all Hayashi could think as he felt just how much stronger this state made him, as it enhanced all his physical attributes from strength, agility, defense, and stamina, and it also gave him many options to extend his fighting arsenal. After all, this chakra could be used to create very versatile chakra hands that can be used to attack enemies in all kinds of ways, and their effect will be maximized when a master in taijutsu like him uses it. This is no different than giving a tiger wings, and from the satisfied look on Hayashi's face and the powerful presence he was emanating right now, I knew he could deal with Killer Bee, or at least survive against him even if he fully transforms. With our preparation ready, we soon heard Akira giving the command to prepare for the enemy attack, which some of the scouts already detected, so I quickly gave both Kurama and Hayashi a nod and said, good luck, you two. Good luck, said Hayashi. Growling, don't die, kid, said Kurama, while secretly wondering about how the kid knew about the Sage of the Six Paths, so he decided to ask after the war, if he got the chance. With our goodbyes said, I quickly traveled to Akira's location. Seeing me arrive after meeting Hayashi and the Nine Tails made him even more at ease with my identity, so he nodded at me and asked, what do you want, Bakorio? I nodded back at him in greeting and said, please tell me where the army of Kumo is most concentrated. I could feel many emotions fighting in his heart, even though his face didn't change at all. Pride, guilt, anger, but one emotion started slowly prevailing as he looked at the eyes of the boy in front of him. Eyes that weren't afraid of this war, that ignited his fighting spirit. Okay, our forces. I quickly memorized everything he told me about both Konoha's and Kumo's forces before I thanked him and quickly followed after the teams leaving for the war. And so my last battle in the Kumo front was going to start. I quickly flickered in the direction of the forest where the most dangerous battles were going to take place following after Konoha's forces, and my eyes slowly started transforming into my Mangekyo Sharingan. And then, swoosh swoosh. Projectiles started flying in the air, heading directly towards every fatal spot of my body, and they hit their target before I could react, causing me many grievous wounds and start falling from the air, or at least that's what my two attackers thought. 2 people were hiding using the trees as their cover and thinking their sneak attack succeeded. They were wearing Kumo's standard attire, which consists of a long, gray top which gathers just at the waist to give a sash-like appearance, with a matching colored bottom. Over this, they wore white, one-strap flak jackets and arm as well as shin guards. They both smirked and nodded at each other, signaling that the job here was finished, and they were about to start finding another target to assassinate. However, soon the boy they thought they killed transformed into a tree stump. This was the magic of the substitution jutsu. With incredible speed, I appeared behind one of them and coldly stabbed him with a lethal kunai in the back of the throat before I quickly retrieved it, causing him to close his wound and panic with his hands to no avail as his blood slowly drained from his body as he made gurgling sounds and started falling to the ground. Then I threw that same kunai in the direction of the other ninja and took a deep breath while doing some hand signs. Great breakthrough jutsu. I exhaled a surge of strong wind in the same direction of the kunai, enhancing its speed even more. The kunai flew in a blinding speed, leaving this chunin no time to react before he was stabbed in the head, leaving a gaping hole in it with blood and brain matter exploding everywhere, and then I simply tugged a chakra string attached to the kunai to retrieve it while already flickering to my next target. 2 corpses slowly started falling down from the trees. However, before they could even touch the ground, I was already in front of my next target, which happens to be another chunin trapped in one of Konoha's traps and was trying to break a barrier using a blade coated in lightning release chakra. Without hesitation, I sent 4 normal kunais with explosives attached to them, and before long, the barrier along with the chunin inside of it went boom and were blasted into smithereens. Let the hunting begin was the only thought in my mind as I left behind 3 corpses in a very short amount of time, and like an apex predator, I quickly checked my map for the next close prey. I noticed that a small team of 4 people was heading my way, clearly having heard the sound of the explosion, and while carefully bypassing some of the traps in the area, they quickly arrived where the explosion just happened. They were a group made of 1 jonin and 3 chunin, and from the way they dodged the traps, they are probably very good with Fuinjutsu. Seeing the torn Kumo attire as well as the corpse that was blasted into many pieces made some of the inexperienced chunins retch in disgust and almost throw up. However, the jonin leader quickly became very stern while checking the area around them and said with a serious voice, "Don't let your guard down, the enemy might still be near." The 3 chunin who heard their team captain slightly flinched that the enemy that could cause such a scene might still be nearby, but even their strong captain couldn't sense him, so they quickly nodded nervously and put their guard up and used a simple formation to cover for each other as lightning started covering their blades, but they still had some flaws that could be exploited. However, unfortunately for them, death already had them as its target. I watched silently while using my Yomi no Kuni ability to completely hide my presence while using the passive of my Jikaninki, which made me realize one thing very clearly. If I couldn't feel emotions, I might have truly put my guard down a little and attacked their clearly flawed formation while they are in this nervous state. What sneaky and dangerous people, the battlefield is truly not a simple place. Indeed, there was no emotion of nervousness in those 3 chunin. It was all an act from the start to draw out the one who caused the explosion and to make themselves seem like an easy target. Understanding that no one should be underestimated in war and things aren't always as they seem, I quickly chose the perfect time when that jonin surveying the surroundings was about to look in the direction I was in. The moment he did, I shifted my position, catching him by surprise and leaving him no time to react as he looked straight at my blood-red eyes. The moment we made eye contact, I directly put that jonin into a jinjutsu which he wasn't going to leave anytime soon. Not good was all he could think before he found himself in a very dark gray land covered with white ashen skeletons. This scene creeped him out to no end, but it only increased much more when the hollow eyes on the skulls of those skeletons began shining with a pale green light and a shiver seemed to have run through the still bones covering the grounds. No, I need to wake up, this is just a jinjutsu. They will soon break me free from it. The jonin tried to raise his confidence, however, no matter what he did, he couldn't break from this jinjutsu on his own, and he started praying for his comrades to free him. However, he was soon cut off from his prayers as a cold and bony hand slowly caught his leg. It was a feeling that sent shivers down his spine, so he quickly tried to struggle away from it. But more and more hands started catching him, and the skeletons in the distance started rising up, and he noticed to his horror that they had all kinds of different shapes. From animals to humans to giants that reached the sky of this land to demons with horns and creepy aura still revolving around them even in their death. It was anyone's worst nightmare, and soon those skeletons held him in place, and what followed next was indescribable. Meanwhile, the 3 chunin could hear their captain freeze with absolute terror on his face, and they quickly understood that they were under attack, so they quickly adjusted their formation, hiding any of its previous apparent flaws. Next, 2 of them simultaneously attacked the direction their captain looked at while the last one tried to free him from the jinjutsu. One of the Chunin quickly did some hand signs. Monkey ox boar tiger. Lightning rat violent quake. He released a strong discharge of electricity in the form of several destructive discs that were homing in on my position while cutting anything in their way. Meanwhile, the second Chunin did different hand seals and then put his hand on the ground. Dog dragon rat ram. Lightning release. Spider web. Once his hands touched the ground, a giant web made of electricity covered the area surrounding them while avoiding touching any of his comrades. This web would electrocute anyone that touches it, which will immobilize them, forcing them to be careful about their positioning and leaving them with the best option of attack being from the air. Not bad, but it's not enough. I thought as I looked at the attacks flying my way before I stepped very hard on the branch of the tree I was sitting on, destroying it in the process and disappearing from their view. What was all the two Chunins who were focusing on me could think when they saw the speed I used to disappear from their view? After all, right now my agility was at around 400, making me slightly surpass the speed of sound, and this is even without using the medium agility potion. And so before they could react, swoosh, a head flew in the air. It was the head of the third Chunin that was trying to help their captain break from my genjutsu, and he almost succeeded in doing so. Unfortunately for him, he wasn't fast enough. So with disbelief filling his face as he watched his view growing further and further from his body as his head flew in the air, he watched as his extended hand that barely made contact with his captain freeze midway before his body started falling to the ground, and it was the last scene he saw. The two Chunins quickly turned around and yelled in horror, "Gurui," when they saw the head of their comrade flying through the air and his assailant standing coldly beside him and looking coldly at them. Swallowed by anger, they used their swords covered in lightning release to attack me. One slashed me at my head vertically while the other stabbed me in the direction of my heart, both filled with absolute rage. Probably friends, huh? It seems their teamwork wasn't born from nothing. However, your biggest mistake is attacking me recklessly like this. I thought as I simply sidestepped to the right to dodge both of their attacks while at the same time using hand signs with a very fast speed, and before they could retreat, I started releasing a huge amount of fire from my mouth. Fire release. Great Fire Annihilation Jutsu. This was the same jutsu Madara used in the Fourth Great Ninja World War. It's a rank B Uchiha jutsu that works by needing chakra inside the body to concentrate it, which requires skillful chakra manipulation to not harm the body, and then using chakra nature transformation to transform it into fire. Then, the user shapes the inside of their mouth into a cone and then expel it, which will make it resemble a literal sea of flames that covers a wide range. This makes the technique extremely hard to avoid or contain. The power of this jutsu depends on the amount of chakra the user can concentrate without harming themselves. When used by someone like Madara, it required so many ninjas to cooperate to stop it using water release that has superiority over fire release. The advantage of this jutsu is that it covers a wide range. However, against enemies far away from the target, it becomes useless, and it's better for the ninja to use something like the Great Fireball Jutsu that can reach farther distances but has lesser spread. Basically, one is an area of effect attack and the other is a single target attack in game's terms. And I took full advantage of this jutsu, and those two Chunins didn't have any chance to dodge such widespread attack, so they were quickly devoured by the sea of flames along with some of the trees behind them that the first guy chopped up with his lightning discs. Aia was all I could hear as the two Chunins started burning alive and screamed from the terrible pain they were feeling and started rolling on the dirt to try to put it off to no avail. So, I quickly slit their throats and put them out of their misery. Lastly, I looked at the Jonin trapped in my Jinjutsu before. I also dealt with him with a simple water bullet jutsu that hit him right in the forehead, putting him out of the horrible nightmare of the land of the dead. Sigh, the war is indeed cruel. No, this whole world is cruel, and I am slowly getting used to it, I thought ironically before I focused my attention on the biggest gathering of Kumo shinobi. There are 10 people in the northwest direction, and from their chakra signature at least 3 of them are Jonin, well, they are going to be a real test. I quickly flickered to their location, and I could tell that they also noticed me because they quickly got into formation as soon as I started moving towards them. They have a sensor, finally a good challenge, I thought, and when I reached 50 meters away from them, I spotted the group. They were made of 8 males and 2 females. I noticed that one of the females and another male were holding huge scrolls, and I guess they were both special jonins, and their specialty was Fuinjutsu. I couldn't help but remember someone I fought from Konoha who was also like them, a special jonin in Fuinjutsu. This is probably one of their main teams responsible for dismantling the traps around the battlefield. Unfortunately, they are going to be dismantled by me right now. Meanwhile, as I was planning on how to deal with them, the three jonin leading this group felt slightly relaxed and even somewhat complacent when they saw I was just a boy and alone at that, so one of them said, "So it's just a kid, and here I was ready for a fight." How disappointing. This was a very beautiful dark-skinned female with long spiky red hair and amber eyes, and she was one of the jonins leading this team. Her comrades agreed with her, and one of them, who was also dark-skinned and very muscular with a huge sword on his back, dismissively ordered the 5 chunin accompanying them, deal with him quickly. "Yes, sir," they replied and prepared themselves to attack. However, the more I got closer, the more the last jonin, who was their censor, started feeling something weird about me. He felt my chakra was ominous. But when I reached the 30 meters mark, it was already too late as the battle started. I quickly started doing hand signs and tried testing something new I didn't use before because of how dangerous it might be on the body: fire release, multiple great fireball jutsu. The usual great fireball jutsu works by simply kneading chakra and forming it in the shape of a highly concentrated ball before transforming it into fire nature chakra and releasing it from the mouth. The hand signs make it easier for this kneading process to happen. However, what I was trying to do now is creating multiple balls of chakra at the same time. Thanks to my strength and physical attributes, I could deal with the pressure easily, even though it felt like I was having multiple stones inside my body. Then, I started releasing them one by one, blocking any escape route those 10 ninjas could take. Not good, thought the censor jonin, who realized that I was preparing a huge amount of chakra for an attack, so he quickly yelled to his team, "Defend." The other 2 jonin didn't understand what he meant, but they soon were surprised at the number of great fireballs heading their way. There were a total of 5 of them that almost looked like small suns heading their way, and they quickly reacted to either dodge or defend against them. The censor was the first to react, and he quickly made some hand signs and yelled, "Water release, water wall jutsu." However, they knew it wasn't enough, so they all started casting all kinds of defensive earth release and water release jutsus, which caused a huge cloud of mist and dust to cover the area. That's when the blood-red eyes of the hunters shone through the mist and started reaping their life mercilessly one by one. The moment the area became covered in mist, the censor quickly yelled to his comrades, "Gather into Formation C." This formation is for specific situations such as this one when dealing with a possible assassin. So, they would all gather in a circular formation while protecting their weakest or most important members in the middle. In this case, they were the 2 Fuinjutsu specialists meant to discover and disable the traps Konoha's forces hid all over the battlefield. "I can't feel his presence at all. This is really bad," was all the jonin censor could think as he started having a terrible feeling about this encounter, so he started pushing his focus to its absolute limits to locate the position of the boy, trying to use the ominous aura he felt before to his advantage, but it was to no avail. The silence and tension kept building on the battlefield, but it was soon broken when I decided to make my move as I rushed directly for the female that was disappointed in only fighting a kid. She quickly noticed me approaching with a short sword in hand, which made her underestimate me even more, as she also was a sword wielder, so she didn't hesitate to envelop her sword in lightning and prepare for my attack. "Careful," the kid made his move, "and he's an Uchiha." She yelled at her comrades when she noticed my Sharingan, then she attacked me with a very fast slash. Not bad, the speed of her slash was truly fast, but I could still react to it thanks to my huge agility and swift sword style. So I parried her slash with my sword, which I covered in chakra that flowed from the handle to the tip, and this was for 2 reasons. First, so that I do not get electrocuted by the lightning covering her sword. And second, was to make my tilted parrying motion even more effective, as her attack almost seemed to be slipping from my swords and hit the ground to her shock. Then, using my level 5 swift sword style that enhanced my attack speed with the sword by 25%, I quickly slashed at her neck. "No, I'm going to die," was all she could think of as my sword grew closer to her neck. But at the last moment, my attack was interrupted by a huge figure using a huge sword. Clang. Sparks flew everywhere between as I looked at who blocked my attack, and it was the dismissive Jonin. He's strong, thought the huge Jonin in horror when he felt the force behind my slash that almost made him lose his grip on his sword. Then right afterward, the censor followed by attacking directly using the rank C lightning release, Lightning Beast Tracking Fang. This jutsu creates a dog-like beast made of lightning, and it keeps on following the target under the manipulation of the caster until he gets hit. Add to that the rest of the Chunin that started reacting, making the situation seem to be tilting in favor of this team. TCH, how annoying, it's good that I was careful, I thought with a smirk on my face as I dodged the beast of lightning, and then. Not good was all the censor could think as my real body appeared behind the group of Chunins and in perfect synchronization with my shadow clone who kept distracting the Jonins. Heads started flying in the air while blood rained down on this misty terrain. Careful, he's behind us. Disperse the mist. After I quickly killed 3 Chunins, one of the last 2 that could use wind release took a deep breath and used a wind shockwave jutsu to disperse the mist to the best of his abilities. This jutsu is best used with a huge fan, and it creates a strong shockwave that blows everything in the direction the user chooses, and he chose my direction. Of course, I wasn't going to be fazed by something like this, so I took a deep breath and used my great fireball jutsu, sending it right at his attack. Just as the mist was pushed back, that Chunin saw a huge fireball coming his way, and when it came in contact with his wind release, it only grew bigger while slowing down slightly in speed, which forced the 2 Chunin and special Chunin to dodge, breaking them out of the formation. Disperse, yelled the red-haired woman, trying to at least save some of her teammates. However, she was quickly interrupted by my clone that was dealing with their combined assault on his own and didn't allow them to assist the rest of the group. No one's going to escape today, I said in an eerie voice as the moment they turned to run away. I caught up with them one by one, and all the Jonin could hear was screams of fear and pain before they died down, and they looked in anger at my clone. "You bastard, I will make sure you die here today," yelled the muscular man in anger and hatred in his eyes, and the other 2 were the same. Tap, tap, tap. Footsteps slowly came closer to them, and they soon heard a cold voice. "This is a battlefield. Don't hate me for killing you, because otherwise, I would be the one dying instead. This kid is dangerous, and he even seems to be holding back. We are really in trouble," thought the censor as he signaled to his fellow Jonin to buy as much time as possible and wait for assistance to come. Noticing their signaling, I calmly shook my head and said, "You won't be leaving this place alive, so you 3 better put your all in this, as it's your last fight." Seeing that none of them responded, and they seemed to be clinging to some hope, I didn't bother with talking to them anymore and signaled my clone to throw my short sword at me. I made it look like I was attacking them, so the sword went straight towards the censor's head, and he barely dodged it, and then it almost seemed like it was going to pass beside my head, but I caught it by the handle at the last second. "Well, let's dance," I said in a humor they didn't understand as my clone dispersed to their surprise, and I attacked them this time using 2 short swords. I should reach level 75 in my close combat after this fight, I thought in delight as I engaged with the muscular man again. I sent a slash at him, and he raised his huge swords to his chest to block it, and any prospective person could tell from his contracted and slightly shivering muscles that he was using almost all of his strength to block the attack of this kid. What a monster, the trio thought as they decided to use a new formation against me, and they quickly surrounded me into a triangle-shaped formation. "Oh, this is new," I thought while attacking the burly man again, and expecting the other 2 to sneak attack me from behind. However, that didn't happen, and the burly man actually used the lightning release chakra mode to make himself stronger and faster, and was able to slightly push me back to the center of the trio. That's when I found it strange, because he didn't follow up with his advantage to attack me, and neither did the other 2. Instead, he stabbed a metallic rod on the ground and dispersed the lightning around him, and I saw the other 2 do the same, stabbing metallic rods on the ground. What are they doing? I thought in doubt, which was quickly cleared when I saw them doing hand signs of ox, horse, dragon, and heard them say at the same time, "Lightning release, Thunderbind Jutsu." "Oh, I get up," was all I could think of at the sudden realization of what this was. I suddenly found myself trapped inside a 3-sided wall made of lightning, causing to quickly start going through all the information I collected before coming to this war on the different jutsu used by the different hidden village, and it didn't take me more than an instant to recognize what's this jutsu. This is troublesome, I thought as I realized that this was the rank B lightning release. Thunderbind Jutsu. This jutsu allows the user to create a three-sided wall of electricity to trap their opponent inside. However, this jutsu requires the use of three conductors for electricity, and in this case, they were the three metallic rods each of the trio planted in the ground in a triangular formation. Once the enemy is inside, if they come into contact with the wall, they will get fried and electrocuted by the strong lightning. So, the only way the jutsu can be broken is if an outside party were to strike one of the conductors with a strong enough attack, which will then disrupt the formation and deactivate the walls. What makes my situation worse, however, is that what I'm facing right now isn't just a simple Thunderbind jutsu. No, I was facing a multi-layered Thunderbind jutsu. Instead of one three-sided wall made of lightning, I was trapped inside 3 layers of walls, making the power of this jutsu rise to the peak of a rank and maybe even S rank jutsu. I quickly analyzed my situation. Normally people can't break this jutsu because of the tight space they are held in, so if they use a strong attack, even if it can break the barrier of electricity, the shockwave would be disastrous for them. I raised my head and noticed that even the usual flaw of the jutsu, not having a cover of electricity above the trapped person, was nullified under their collaboration, and even if I could jump high enough or fly, now it would be useless. They are really cautious, huh? I need at least an S-rank jutsu to break from this. These 3 must be really happy right now, huh? I thought as I looked at the trio observing me. Kid, you won't be escaping anytime soon. This collaboration jutsu can even trap a Kage-level ninja for a while. Just wait patiently. When our reinforcements arrive, so will your death, the muscular man said with a face filled with rage. The other 2 had similar expressions filled with hatred and didn't say anything as they focused on their jutsu to give me no chance to escape. Well, I indeed underestimated you, but this is as far as you can go, I calmly said in contrast to their rage and hatred after I noted down my lack of high-level jutsu, and then my eyes slowly changed to their horror into something more than a Sharingan, something they never saw before. Yomi no Kuni, an aura of death emanated from my body, surprising the trio, especially the censor who could feel the danger that was lurking inside that ominous aura, so he quickly warned his comrades with a grave face. Be careful, this kid is up to something, but they didn't think too much of it as their ability was really hard to break, and even the censor didn't understand why he would feel unsafe. But his doubts were soon cleared when he saw 4 dark chains appearing out of nowhere and breaking their jutsu in no time. WTT-, the overconfident woman finally lost her confidence and simply looked in shock as before they could react. They found the boy escaping their jutsu and his chains attacking them at a terrifying speed. The muscular man tried to block the chain with his trusted huge sword. However, to his disappointment, the chain of death pierced through his sword like it was butter and left him no time to react as he got punctured in the head by the chain. PCHD. 1 down, 2 to go, I calmly said as I looked at the man that was stabbed by my chain before turning my attention to the smart censor and woman who decided it was better to dodge such an unknown ability. Of course, what I didn't know is that this guy stayed behind on purpose to buy some time for his comrades to escape the little kid who they now only saw as a devil and not a human. Unfortunately, he still underestimated the kid's ability and thought that he was only good at dispelling other jutsu but weak against real materials, especially something as hard as his sword. Durai, yelled the censor in his head when he sensed his friend's death, causing his hatred for this Konoha ninja to rise to no end, and he vowed in his heart to take revenge for his comrades. But just as he was making this vow, a voice came from behind him. No, you won't be getting any revenge, was the last thing he could hear. Huh? How could he know what I was thinking? And why do I feel so light? Was the last thing he could think of as his head started separating from his still moving body and flying through the air, raining blood on the ground. I quickly drew out my sword and blocked a very fast backstab that was going right to my heart, and said, so you didn't flee in the end. What a nice team. In front of me was a woman with tears falling from her eyes and helplessness filling her face as her last attempt in using her life to rid her village of such a threat, which they didn't know about before failed. So, she resigned herself to her fate as the chains of death already surrounded her body and asked, "Who are you?" I calmly looked at the desperation in this girl's amber eyes, and I felt my heart aching at a scary realization: maybe one day I will be the one in this position, if I'm not strong enough. Sigh. "I'm Bakorio. Rest in peace," I said, and before she could reply, I ended her suffering. This is really tiring me mentally. Just why is it that the people of this world hunger for instead of seeking for peace? Whenever they find an opportunity for war, they immediately jump at it. I thought while looking at my rising mastery and many skills after these fights, and my also increasing emptiness. Hopefully, this is going to be worth it when I am done. And then, I used my strong senses along with my map, following my journey filled with blood in this front of Kumo unhindered for a while, until I was interrupted by a certain pain, resulting in another epic fight between us that wasn't interrupted this time by Killer B or A. It seems Kurama's heading my advice and isn't giving any chance to A to use the Kahaku no Johei. That's good, I thought as I looked at my injuries as well as the various destroyed bodies of the 6 paths of pain. Let's try this again, I thought as I raised the palm of my hand and started gathering a small amount of chakra in it while rotating it in multiple directions, and when I felt it getting more and more stable, I started increasing the volume and the density of the chakra, resulting in the creation of a blue revolving orb. This is the Rasengan. So this is what you were trying to master throughout our fight. Pain was shocked as he realized this was the same jutsu that his master Jiraiya uses. Meanwhile, I completely ignored his surprise as I was simply thinking about this great achievement while looking at the revolving chakra ball in excitement. Finally, I mastered my first rank A offensive jutsu. And with this, I started a new fight with pain, now having even more offensive options. While I was focusing on using the Rasengan, the Deva Path Pain stood guard in front of the Naraka Path in case I attacked them with my chains of death, as only he and the Preta Path can block them, and kept staring nostalgically at the Rasengan revolving in my hand. Meanwhile, the Naraka Path took this opportunity to summon the King of Hell and was using this chance to restore the other 2 destroyed paths while I was distracted. The moment I finished stabilizing my Rasengan was also the moment the King of Hell spat the now restored paths back out, and without hesitation, the Azura Path quickly transformed his hand into a very advanced weapon for this world, a missile launcher, and he immediately fired multiple missiles in my direction. I manipulated one of my chains and used it like a whip to break them before they get near me, causing a huge explosion in the air, and I took this opportunity and quickly approached them. In my fights against pain, I always stay careful of the Preta, Deva, Azura, and Animal paths because they are the true attacking force while the rest are only at the strong end of the Jonin rank. The human path requires touching a person for his soul extracting ability to work, while the Naraka path only played the role of support by restoring the injured paths, while his offense wasn't that much as the best they can do is use the Renegade's shared ability to summon black rods and stab me with them. I started running in their direction with one short sword in my left hand and a Rasengan in the right trying to close the distance, but I was quickly interrupted by the Deva path that raised the palm of his hand in my direction and used Bansho Tenon. This is the ability of the Deva path that allows him to attract anything he wants to his position, and it always works like a charm as I couldn't find a way to counter it yet, and started quickly flying through the air, which made me lose my focus on my Rasengan, and it dissipated. TCH, how annoying. I'm still not good enough at it, I thought, and noticed how the Azura path manipulated his body to create something like a chainsaw which he tried to puncture me with. At the same time, the Preta path was waiting for me to attack with my chains to block them and absorb my chakra. So without hesitation, I used my chains of death and attacked everyone other than the Azura path that was on my way to distract them, making sure none kept contact with the Deva and Preta path's chakra absorption, and when I was drawn near enough to the Azura path, a black skeletal hand extended from my body blocking HS chainsaw and tried to catch him by surprise and crush him. However, realizing the danger, he dodged my attack with incredible speed using the rebound of his chainsaw with my Susanu's hand to his advantage and without giving me any chance to react. A green bird with a very weird beak came crashing down on me from the sky with incredible speed. I quickly reacted by stabbing it with one of my chains, which unsummoned it before I engaged in close combat with the Deva Path, using my swords while he used the black rods he conjures with his Rinnegan. Clang, clang, clang. Every time I fight him, it feels like I am hitting an unmovable mountain. My strength right now is at least 400 points, and it's greatly enhanced with my 9 tails first tail beast mode, yet I can't move this guy at all. His physical attribute is probably 700 at the very least TCH. I thought while exchanging some more blows before I got interrupted by the Azura Path, which tried to use a sneak attack on me with his chainsaw-like tail. I blocked it again with my Susanu's hand and sent him far away before I noticed that the animal path summoned an ox this time, and it was rushing my way. At the same time, the Preda Path jumped on top of the ox to block any death chains that try to attack it, while the Deva Path put even more pressure on me with his attacks. I could feel that my 9 tails chakra was getting exhausted faster and faster, so I quickly sent one of my chains at Deva Path to put some distance between us before I bit my thumb and used summoning jutsu, Rashomon. 3 huge Rashomon gates appeared in front of the path of the charging ox, but I couldn't use this opportunity to hide by blocking their vision of me, because the Azura Path was still behind me like a hunter trying to find any chance to take my life. And one of the annoying abilities of Rinnegan is that the 6 paths share each other's vision. Boom. The ox destroyed the Rashomon gates, but his charge also stopped. However, our fight was far from ending. After a few minutes of fighting, I was very exhausted from overusing my Mangekyo Sharingan, but in the end, I was actually able to summon the whole version of the upper body skeletal Susanoo. It was completely black and had 3 horns on its head, 2 on the sides, and 1 was extending from its forehead, and its eyes shone with a pale, eerie white light. Using it, I was finally able to reach a stalemate with the 6 paths of pain, but not for long, as I could feel myself slowly going blind, and what made it worse was suddenly getting hit by a tailed beast bomb from a certain Gyuki, which I couldn't dodge while having my hands full with pain. BOM. A huge explosion impacted the area, and the blast even tried to swallow the paths of pain, but the Preda Path and the Deva Path quickly stood on its way and defended the Animal Path and Naraka Path respectively behind them. Meanwhile, my situation wasn't that good. Taking on an attack like a tailed beast bomb from the 8 tails is no joke, and even though I was using my Susanoo, the skeletal version alone wasn't enough to block such a high-level attack head-on like this. After getting hit in the back, most of my Susanoo's backbones broke, which made it scream in agony before completely vanishing. Meanwhile, I was also hit by the explosion, which severely burned my back, but I didn't break any bones thanks to the Susanoo that took the majority of the damage, as well as my strong PHY attribute, as well as the addition of the new Akimichi bloodline. Before long, the explosion settled and a shocked Killer Bee along with a heavily injured Raikage arrived at the fight scene between me and Pain, which now turned into a huge deep hole other than the location Pain was standing on. "Yo, where did that huge black skeleton go?" asked Killer Bee while looking at my heavy injuries, while the Raikage yelled directly in anger when he noticed the pattern in my eyes. "You are the kid that caused us all those casualties." I gave them a quick look and I noticed that I was already seeing them in triples from the damage to my vision, so I knew it was time to leave, but I wanted to ask something first that was weighing on my heart. "What happened to the Hyuga you were fighting?" This question was addressed to Killer Bee that was supposed to be held back by Hayashi. Killer Bee's expression turned somewhat respectful, and I understood everything that happened from it. Hayashi gave it his all, huh? And Bee quickly confirmed my thoughts. That Hugo wanted me dead, so I went ahead and took his head instead. Even though I knew I was going to go back in time, I could help but feel sad before I gave them one last look. "You can die now," said the Raikage as he rushed at me, but I simply said load in my head, and with another month lost of my life I returned a day in time. I looked at the familiar scenery of Konoha's gate that I started to hate, while deep in thought, have I just sacrificed my friend to achieve my goal? My eyes were empty as I struggled to understand this weird situation. No, he's still alive. I tried to reaffirm in my mind as I looked at Hayashi, who's standing not that far away from my location, and I. Noticed that he was looking at me worriedly and was about to come to check on me, so I quickly hid my emotions. Am I capable of doing such things if I didn't have this save and loud ability? For the first time, I started to hate this ability. Not because it requires too much energy from my system or that now it costs me life energy every time I use it. No. The reason I'm starting to hate it is the endless possibilities it opens for its wielder. People are like the moon. They have a dark side they keep hidden for various reasons. And the main reason is that the world has rules and the consequences for bad actions usually outweigh the twisted desires they feel. So most people keep those dark desires buried in the deepest parts of their hearts. Those who are overwhelmed by those twisted desires become criminals. Whether the thing they desire is chaos, killing, stealing, harassing, assaulting, etc. Consequences help the person rein these emotions in. However, what if you give someone who likes to harass women the power to rewind time? It will eliminate his fear for the consequence, and what happens is the slow emergence of his dark side. At first, he would start by slowly harassing them, and when he realizes the reality that there are no consequences, he gains even more confidence and starts doing worse and worse things to satisfy his desires, until a monster is born. And now, this is what Bakorio is trying to determine and why he started hating this ability, a tempting ability that could turn a saint into a devil. Did I always want war? Was I always capable of killing people? These doubts started overwhelming my heart, and I started losing trust in myself. A darkness that I couldn't see but I could feel crept inside my heart and tried to taint it, but I couldn't push myself to fight it as the only thought that's on my mind is, was I always evil? However, someone seemed to sense what I was going through and quickly rushed to my side. "Bakorio, are you okay?" said Hayashi with a worried look, while shaking my shoulder to snap me out of my daze. Why is he looking like this? Didn't I hide my emotions? I questioned in my head while looking at Hayashi blankly and said, "What's wrong?" "You tell me what's wrong," yelled Hayashi, who still didn't let go of my shoulders while thinking inside his head, was I seeing things? -1 minute ago. Vice Commander Akira, is everything ready for our trip? Asked Hayashi with a dignified face suiting that of a commander. Yes, sir. Everything is ready. We can set out any time now, replied Akira with the serious face he was known for. Hayashi nodded at this while scanning everything with his Byakugan before suddenly his dignified face crumbled, and to Akira's surprise, it quickly turned into worry, so he thought. What happened to the commander? When he averted his eyes and stared in the same direction Hayashi was looking at, he saw a kid standing alone with an empty gaze. Other than the empty look in the kid's eyes, nothing seemed to be wrong. However, his gut feeling told him otherwise, and for some reason, he felt that the kid had a certain eeriness to him, but he couldn't pinpoint how, and this was only further confirmed when he saw Hayashi rushing to the kid's side, leaving only a simple sentence behind, "I will be back." What happened to this kid? Was a question Akira really wanted to have an answer for, because he was one of the people who knew the importance of this kid. Meanwhile, Hayashi felt his heart going cold because when he swept his Byakugan in Bakorio's direction, he saw an unbelievable thing, a dark mist trying to cover his heart. However, despite the unknown danger, he rushed to his side without hesitation and noticed the mist vanishing, leaving behind no trace, making him doubt the nature of this mist. Was it manipulated, or even worse, is it alive? So he started shaking Bakorio quickly to check if he was alright, and he noticed that he seemed to be waking up from a weird state. Back to normal time. Seeing the huge concern in Hayashi's eye, and the feeling of fear or readiness for fighting in his heart, made me realize that something wasn't right. Every time I come back in time, Hayashi notices my emotional state and rushes to my side. However, all those times he only felt concern or worry for me, never this kind of fear, as well as if there's an enemy nearby. I thought as I quickly calmed myself and decided to leave my doubt about my ability for later. I can tell you are afraid of something and in a state ready to fight. Please tell me what happened. I asked seriously, having a really bad feeling about this. Hayashi relaxed after he saw me back to normal, but then he was surprised by me saying what he was feeling exactly. What a scary kid, he thought. But then he remembered the dark mist and frowned as he said, "When I was checking our troops with my Byakugan, I looked in your direction and I noticed a dark mist surrounding your heart, and when I rushed to your side, it vanished, leaving no trace. What? I yelled, and Hayashi for the first time saw a different side of me, a side that only appears when I reach my absolute anger. I quickly used my Mangekyo Sharingan, uncaring if anyone will notice it, and scanned all the area around me, including my body, but I didn't find anything significant, so I decided to use something else. Chikaninki, I muttered, and I pushed this ability of mine that allows me to feel emotions to its absolute limits, causing blood to drip from my right eye like a stream until I achieved something new. I started seeing emotions. Different people had different colored hearts signifying what they were feeling: nervousness, anger, seriousness, pride, etc. And some had a mixture of colors, and I could see them and understand their meaning easily. However, when I looked at my body, I noticed a color I didn't see in anyone else. There was a huge lump of red from the overwhelming anger I was feeling at the possibility that someone tried to manipulate my emotions. But inside that lump of red, there was a black spot, and I directly linked it to the dark mist Hayashi talked about. So, without hesitation, I used Jikaninki on it and destroyed it, making me feel as if a stone was removed from my heart, and it felt so light. However, before I could even rejoice at my success, I heard a terrible scream in my head: ag-gag. It was a mixture of multiple voices wailing and screaming in absolute despair that made my soul shake in fear and terror, and it lasted a few seconds before I heard a very devilish whisper in my ear. I am always watching you from where you can't perceive. Ugh. I held my head in pain, feeling like it was about to explode from the screams and voices I just heard, and it felt like I was plunged into a pool of darkness, deprived of all my senses. Then, all that pain transformed into absolute fear and terror after I heard that whisper filled with malice. What's happening to me? Was all I could think in this sudden situation while trying to shake off the feeling of terror that voice brought me, but it was to no avail. So using all the sanity I could muster, and thanks to my primal instincts kicking in, I decided to use Jikaninki on myself to diminish those feelings and increase my feeling of calmness, which resulted in me pushing my right eye to its absolute limits again and almost making me go blind just to get my heart out of this terrifying darkness. After all, the most taxing ability of my Jikaninki is creating or deleting emotions, and I already used them both. After I did so, I finally could think calmly again, and my body started going back to functioning properly, and I could hear a distant voice slowly getting clearer in my ears the more that fear diminished. Barrio wa up? Bakorio? Bakorio, wake up. Who's calling my name? I questioned in my mind, and as that voice grew clearer in my head and my vision started returning back to reality, I realized it's Hayashi's voice. Vision to my left, I started returning slowly, but there was no indication that it was going to return to my right eye. And before long, I could see a desperate Hayashi looking at me with fear and worry while yelling at me to wake up and calling for a medic at the same time to check on my situation that left him dumbfounded. Hayashi, what happened to me? I asked with a weak voice, feeling all my strength was sucked out of me, not knowing if it was from the weird incident or from overusing my Mangekyo Sharingan, which turned back to normal. I don't know. Hayashi shook his head before he finally heaved a sigh of relief and said, I am glad that you are at least responding right now. A medical ninja will come to check on your situation, and I also sent for Tsunade-sama to come to check on you. She should be here soon. I see. Thank you. I responded with a grateful look before I started recollecting my memories, and I couldn't help but feel a chill and slightly tremble when I remembered the final eerie whisper I heard, and Hayashi clearly noticed that I was shaken. I am always watching you from where you can't perceive. What's happening to me? Was I cursed by some jutsu without me noticing, or is it something else? I don't remember anything like this happening in canon Naruto. I thought, with my mind analyzing many incidents that were famous in the Naruto canon, yet I always ended up with nothing that could explain what happened to me. I need to research the powers of this world more in the future, and for someone to actually use such a sneaky thing on me of all people, this is really getting on my nerves. I stopped my thoughts as a medical ninja came to check my body, but soon found nothing wrong other than my almost blind right eye. After sending him away in disappointment, both Hayashi and I decided to wait for Tsunade. And while we were waiting, Hayashi finally decided to break the silence, and looking at my right eye with a sad look, he asked me directly, Bakorio, just what exactly happened to you to force you to go to such an extent, and what was that chakra I saw with my Byakugan? I frowned a little after I heard his question and clearly understood his meaning regarding the loss of my eye, as this was a huge part of the plan to deal with Kumo, and now it was lost, so something must have been worth it for me to sacrifice it like this. Let's wait a little bit more for Tsunade to arrive, and I will explain everything that happened to me. I responded, as I didn't want to talk about this creepy incident more than once. Hayashi nodded in understanding and stayed by my side just in case until Tsunade's arrival. During this wait, thanks to my enhanced senses, I could clearly hear the ninjas in Hayashi's army whispering about me. Did you see the eyes of that Uchiha kid? They also have a different pattern than the normal Sharingan, similar to the Hokage. A man who was merely a Chunin said to his friend beside him. Yes, I did see them. I never thought the Uchiha hid their powers so deeply. Now I understand why a kid was allowed to join us. But why did he use it here? Replied the friend who was also a Chunin. I heard from the rumors that he pushed his ability to the point that his right eye became almost blind. It seems he won't be of any help in the coming war, said a female who overheard them in disappointment. Suddenly, I was turned into the talking point of everyone in the army until a very stern voice shut them all up. Enough, quickly finish your preparations. We will be heading out soon. It was Akira who knew what the loss of this kid could cause to their army. -5 minutes later. Tsunade arrived in a hurry along with her apprentice Shizun after receiving the news that I overused my power to the point I almost became blind. How did this kid awaken such dangerous eyes? And he seems much weakened both mentally and physically. Just what happened to make him like this? Thought Tsunade with a frown as she looked at me sitting on the ground as if I just went through hell. Welcome, Tsunade-sama. Please check on his condition first, and we will talk about what happened later, said Hayashi quickly when Tsunade arrived in front of us. She nodded at him, slightly surprised at how much care Hugo was showing for an Uchiha, before she put this thought to the back of her mind and started diagnosing the condition of the kid who was looking at her with tired eyes. After diagnosing him many times, she only found that his stamina and chakra were both extremely drained, but they were slowly recovering, so he should be back to normal soon. But when she checked his right eye, Tsunade slowly stood up while shaking her head. Overall, he's fine, and he will recover with enough time. This is great, Hayashi said happily, but Tsunade quickly cut him off and destroyed his rising hope as she said. However, the vitality of his right eye was almost drained, which made it almost go blind, and any more use of his Mangekyo Sharingan would be enough to push it to that point, and unfortunately, it can't be restored, said Tsunade with a sad face. In contrast to everyone's disappointed and sad faces, mine was perfectly still if you don't count how tired I was feeling, which appeared clearly on my face. However, Tsunade's next question broke the calmness of my face. Bakorio, what happened? She asked worriedly as she looked at the kid that kept his calm in front of her even after he heard that he lost his eye power. But that calmness easily broke when he heard her question and turned into pure wariness as he replied with his own question. Do devils exist?
That's it for today. Remember to show your support to the creator of this story if you enjoyed it. If you would like more parts of the story to be uploaded, leave a comment and subscribe to get notified when the story continues. Bye-bye for now, and I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day.